Chapter 674. There were a lot of experts surrounding Tianyun. Many of them were Spirit King stage experts, and some of them were even at the 6th or 7th layer. They surrounded him so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Everyone looked at him with extremely cold eyes, but most of them were filled with greed. This was an inheritor of the heaven-creating Divine King's inheritor. This meant that he was a huge treasure house, so how could he not attract their attention? Brother, we don't ask for much, just give us half of the heaven-creating Divine King's inheritance. We only need information on divine inscriptions. That's enough. We don't need anything else. We only need a small part of it, a martial art called Divine Art of Universe, and we don't need the rest. Each of them looked at Tianyun with a sinister smile, and they all wanted to take the heaven-creating Divine King's inheritance from him. According to them, basically all the martial arts had to be handed over, but everyone's requirements were different. In this way, what inheritance was there to talk about? There was no need to choose an inheritor, they could just wait for the inheritor to come out. What if I don't give it to you? Tianyun said faintly. That's simple. We'll capture you and force you to confess bit by bit, or use the soul-searching technique to extract your memories bit by bit. One of them laughed sinisterly. I have quite a high level of attainment in the soul-searching technique. Many of them were rogue cultivators, and the divine envoys of the major forces were watching from the side. Among them, the divine envoys of the Zhuoqiu divine kingdom could only shake their heads and sigh as they left. It's not that they didn't want to be loyal to Tianyun, but there were too many powerful enemies here, and they couldn't protect themselves. After all, there were so many powerful forces eyeing them, and the Zhuoqiu divine kingdom was nothing compared to them. With just you. Tianyun looked at them indifferently and said with a smile. A bunch of chickens and dogs dare to be arrogant in front of me? Maybe I'll be interested if your old ancestor comes here, but you're not enough. Boy, you're quite arrogant. One of the Spirit King stage experts sneered. Do you think you're still in the heaven ascending divine altar? This isn't your territory, it's our territory. What kind of power do you think you can display here? He's just trash when he comes out. That's right, you think you're invincible just because you can control the heaven ascending divine altar? After coming out, without the protection of the heaven ascending divine altar, you are nothing. I've long found this brat an eyesore. I'll beat him up first and then slowly interrogate him. At that time, he'll be honest. All of them thought that Tianyun was just using the power of the heaven ascending divine altar to suppress so many Spirit King stage experts. If he came out, he would be like a paper tiger that could be easily broken with a poke. It seems like you really think that I don't have any power and that I can do whatever I want inside just by relying on the heaven altar. Tianyun said indifferently. Isn't that the case? They laughed coldly. Some of them immediately felt that something was wrong, because Tianyun looked too calm, so calm that it was scary. Despite facing so many experts, he didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure at all. He was still talking cheerfully without the slightest bit of fear. If he was just using the power of the heaven ascending divine altar to intimidate others, he should be running away immediately. Since that's the case, then I'll let you experience the power of the heaven ascending divine altar. Tianyun said, and the heavenly nether divine sword appeared in his hand. The netherworld fire appeared on the blade of the sword, and instantly, the temperature in the surroundings dropped to freezing point. In the next moment, he raised his hand and slashed forward, and a 12 meters long sword chi flew out, instantly cutting a large number of experts in front of him into 2 pieces. The parts that were cut off were quickly ignited by the netherworld fire, and in a blink of an eye, they were frozen into ice sculptures. Successfully killed a Spirit King stage expert. Ding! 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 Because there were too many people here, Tianyun was able to kill more than 20 people with just one slash. They didn't even have time to react before they were killed by Tianyun. Even if they were Spirit King stage experts, they were still killed by Tianyun's sword. Tianyun continued to move forward, and once again, he slashed everyone within a dozen meters of him into 2 pieces, as if he was cutting melons and vegetables. He's a devil. At this time, the cultivators in the distance immediately realized that their judgment was wrong, and very wrong. The young man in front of them did not rely on the power of the heaven-ascending divine altar to suppress them, but his own strength was very heaven-defying. Some of the Spirit King stage experts immediately ran away, but some of the Spirit King stage experts reacted quickly and summoned their strongest weapons to attack Yi Tianyun. In the face of such an amazing inheritance, how could they let it go? Most of them were rogue cultivators, and if they could capture Yi Tianyun, it would mean that they could further improve their strength and create their own empire. In order to change their fate, they desperately wanted to capture Yi Tianyun. But it's meaningless. Yi Tianyun gently swung his sword, and it was easily cut in half, like harvesting leeks. One by one, it was harvested. Waves of EXP and Crazy Point were pouring into Yi Tianyun's body, but the amount was small. But he still activated Crazy Mode to earn EXP. He didn't need Crazy Point double card, because Crazy Mode could increase his Crazy Point by 5 times, so the amount of Crazy Point he got was quite considerable. I was just about to say that I'm short of Crazy Point, but since you are sending it to me now, I'll accept it. Every time Yi Tianyun took a step, he would slash with his sword, easily taking away a dozen people's lives. In the eyes of many cultivators, the unreachable powerhouses were easily killed, as if they didn't even need the slightest effort. Run! Run! After killing hundreds of people, there were finally people who were scared. They turned around and fled to the side, but a sword light slashed over and cut them in half. Since you are here, don't leave. Yi Tianyun said his mantra. If you want to hunt me, then be prepared to be hunted. Chapter 675. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood, and the ground was dyed red with blood. Looking from afar, it looked like a piece of red land, which made people's hair stand on end. There were even more miserable screams that spread in all directions, adding to the terrifying atmosphere. Piles of corpses were lying on the ground. These corpses belonged to powerful cultivators. Spirit King stage cultivators were few in number, but Void Spirit stage cultivators were everywhere. In Yi Tianyun's hands, these corpses were like pieces of tofu. Devil! Devil! Run! Run! What kind of power is this? Didn't he use the heaven-ascending divine altar to have this kind of power? This is simply nonsense. His strength is very strong, and it is estimated that he is at the late Spirit King stage. One by one, they quickly ran away, not daring to stay here any longer. But will he let the enemies who surrounded Yi Tianyun escape? His figure flashed, and he swung his sword again and again. Countless lives were easily reaped by him. If he couldn't kill them with a single sword strike, he wouldn't kill them with a single sword strike, which meant that the person was lucky enough to escape. In the distance, the forces who didn't participate in the encirclement looked at Yi Tianyun with cold eyes. Yi Tianyun was a tiger himself. Whoever came close to him would be killed without mercy. Fortunately, I didn't have that kind of compassion. Zuiqiu Divine Messenger was shocked. After seeing such power, all of them were shocked. They didn't intend to participate in the capture battle, mainly because they were a bit in awe of the heaven-creating Divine King, so they didn't do such a thing. Obviously, their decision was right, and it was very correct. If they followed Yi Tianyun's actions, they would be easily beheaded like those corpses. It's too scary. The inheritor of the heaven-creating Divine King is simply a god-killing god. The onlookers didn't dare to approach Yi Tianyun, and they even hid far away. Don't be arrogant. At this time, a loud shout came from the sky, and a Saint King stage cultivator descended from the sky. Obviously, he heard that the inheritor of the heaven-creating Divine King was coming, so he hurried over to have a look. They didn't want others to beat them to it. If they did, they wouldn't have anything left. As soon as the Saint King stage master descended, he slammed his palm down towards Yang Kai. A terrifying force instantly condensed together and formed a giant palm that covered the heavens and earth. This was the power of a Saint King stage master. After seeing this scene, many people felt as if they had seen hope. Sacred monarch flowing light, save us. When they saw that it was a sacred monarch from their god nation, they all cheered. This flowing light sacred king was also very domineering. He had just flown over and wanted to suppress Yi Tianyun without saying anything. It was obvious that he wanted to capture Yi Tianyun and force him to confess. He wasn't going to negotiate with him. Everyone's complexion changed as they secretly thought that Yi Tianyun was finished this time. He had provoked a Saint King stage master, wouldn't he really be suppressed here? It's the flowing light sacred king. His speed is too fast, and he kills everyone in the blink of an eye. This time, the inheritor is finished. He's too fast, he can't even touch him, right? They saw that flowing light sacred king's attack speed was too fast. His first move was the flowing light divine palm. Although it looked like only one palm strike, it was actually dozens of palm strikes. Layer upon layer, the power was absolutely unimaginable. So what if I'm arrogant? Yi Tianyun's eyes were cold. He didn't even need to activate crazy damage mode. His figure flashed and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared behind the Saint King stage master and slashed down heavily. Yi Tianyun's speed was incredible. The Saint King stage master immediately felt a chill behind him, but it was too late for him to react. A sword light slashed down from the top of his head and was immediately split in half. Ding! Successfully killed Yu Liuguang. Reward, 3 billion EXP, 250,000 crazy points, 12,000 SPS, obtained martial art flowing light slash, void breaking art. Reward, flowing light divine sword, high-grade sacred tool, flowing light armor, high-grade sacred tool, flowing light divine talisman, increases speed by 5 times in an instant. Flowing light sacred king was easily killed and turned into a pile of blood mist floating in the air. Yi Tianyun's terrifying power was enough to turn him into a puddle of blood. Flowing light sacred king's speed was amazing, but compared to Yi Tianyun, the difference was too big. 3 desolate equipment had already greatly increased his strength and speed. He didn't even need to use crazy damage mode to suppress everything in front of him. Moreover, flowing light sacred king was only at second layer Saint King stage. How dare he be arrogant in front of him? If you don't have peak Saint King stage cultivation, don't be arrogant in front of me. As long as you aren't a peak Saint King stage cultivator, you are nothing but trash in front of me. Unless you have a peak Saint King stage bloodline, don't be arrogant in front of me. When Yi Tianyun said this, flowing light sacred king couldn't hear it anymore. He was completely dead. How could he hear it? Dead? Dead? A Saint King was easily killed. This immediately scared many people, especially the subordinates of flowing light sacred king. After seeing this scene, their faces turned ashen. The existence that they revered the most had been killed with a single sword strike just like that. There had been no resistance at all. He had been killed so easily. They felt that flowing light sacred king wasn't a saint king, but an ordinary body refinement stage cultivator. At least to Yi Tianyun, this was the case. Who else has any old ancestor level cultivators? Feel free to call them out. I will welcome them. Yi Tianyun flew down. This time, he didn't continue to kill. Instead, he signaled, no matter how many come, I will kill them all. It just so happens that my hands are itching right now. He smiled indifferently, but this smile made everyone's hair stand on end. This time, they finally understood what was called a mistake. Moreover, it was a huge mistake. At this time, many people recalled what Yi Tianyun said before. Let alone an empire, even a divine kingdom was destroyed by him. Based on the current situation, it was definitely possible to do it. A Saint King stage second layer cultivator was killed with a single sword strike. This meant that his strength was absolutely heaven-defying. Ordinary divine kingdoms could be easily destroyed. Even the stronger divine kingdoms could be slaughtered as long as they plunged in. In the end, they might be driven away by the divine kingdom, but that divine kingdom would probably be half destroyed. The battle between Saint Kings was very fierce. Some Saint Kings were very difficult to kill, so under normal circumstances, they wouldn't fight each other. But for Yi Tianyun, it was a piece of cake for him to kill it. Chapter 676. After Yi Tianyun flew down, he did not continue killing. Just as the others thought they could escape, they only took 2 steps before they felt their bodies turn cold. Then they completely lost consciousness. Because they were cut in half, it would be a miracle if they still had consciousness. Did I agree to let you go? Yi Tianyun faintly looked over there, and many people's feet stiffened, and they didn't dare to continue to escape. Because if he continued to run, he would be cut in half by Yi Tianyun's void slash. I am from the East Deity Divine Nation. If you kill me casually, our ancestors. Wang. A sword light slashed over, and this person was cut in half. Blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the ground red. I said, I will not accept any threats. You can ask your ancestors to come personally. They are more than welcome. If anyone can defeat me, I will be more than happy to give up the inheritance. Yi Tianyun said indifferently. They thought that by announcing their divine nation's power, they would compromise. It seemed like it was useless. Their hearts trembled, especially those who were trapped. They wanted to cry but had no tears. They wanted to slap themselves. Why did they make such a choice? Their brains must have been eaten by dogs. Plop. At this time, someone knelt down and kowtowed. My lord, I was wrong. I was blinded by greed. That's why I did it. I was just watching from afar and did not do anything. Wang. Another sword light slashed down, and he was cut in half. I remember each and every one of you. I don't think you were blinded by greed when you released your killing intent towards me. If you really were blinded by greed, it would be a capital crime. If I was a little weaker and had to rely on the Heaven Ascension altar to suppress you, wouldn't I be dead for sure? Yi Tianyun sneered. I have to say that you are worse than idiots. If I had to rely on the Heaven Ascension altar to suppress you, why would I come out? Do you think I am as stupid as you? His words enlightened many people. It wasn't that Yi Tianyun was a fool, but that they had been blinded by greed and thought that Yi Tianyun was really a fool. In the end, they realized that it wasn't Yi Tianyun who was an idiot, but they were the real idiots. I was wrong. I am willing to use all my treasures to redeem my life. At this time, a cultivator knelt down and begged Yi Tianyun to forgive him. Buzz. The sword light continued to slash over, and he was cut into 2 again. If I kill you, what do you have that isn't mine? Yi Tianyun waved his hand, and the storage rings on the surrounding corpses flew over. Immediately, a large pile of treasures appeared. Sure enough, killing people and robbing them was the best way to make money. Originally, he had emptied a lot of things to the Heavenly Clouds Empire, but now he suddenly had a bunch more things. It was just that there were too few things that caught his eye, but it was better to have more of these things. Anyway, there was no harm in having them on him. Many of the onlookers were speechless. It seemed that Yi Tianyun wanted to kill everyone. It should be said that this was the price he was talking about when he killed all those who had murderous intent towards him. Yi Tianyun didn't like to repay evil with kindness. He preferred this most direct way of killing people. He could repay evil with kindness, but it didn't mean that the other party would be grateful to him. I will give you enough time to call for help. Take out whatever communication jade pendant you have. You are very welcome to help. Yi Tianyun smiled indifferently. He was worried that he didn't have enough crazy points. Unless a god king came in person, he would be able to suppress them. At the same time, he wanted to figure out the situation of the heaven world and the ghost world. Looking at Yi Tianyun's fearless situation, many people were speechless. Others were worried about being hunted down, but he was waiting for revenge. They didn't know if Yi Tianyun was overconfident or arrogant. There were many rogue cultivators here, so how could there be any helpers? They could only tremble and pray that Yi Tianyun wouldn't kill them. It seems that you don't plan to call for help. Then, you can all die. Yi Tianyun pointed his finger, and instantly, many cultivators within a 10-mile radius were instantly killed, but they were all those who were murderous towards him, the rest were not greedy, so they didn't suffer any damage. Yi Tianyun glanced around, and the cultivators around him took a few steps back, not because of the aura, but because they were scared by Yi Tianyun. Many forces shook their heads. It seems that this treasure is not so easy to swallow. Even Lu Guang Holy King was easily killed, unless there is a heaven-defying expert. It's just that those heaven-defying Holy Kings are either in seclusion or busy with other things. Why would they come for these juniors? The key is that Yi Tianyun is killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Unless they are an idiot, otherwise they won't come. Even a Holy King would have to weigh themselves. Whether they can suppress Yi Tianyun is another matter. Who would dare to provoke a saint king who has the inheritance of heaven creating divine king? Only the heavens knew if there would be a powerful divine inscription grand formation or a powerful martial art. If that happened, he would be suppressed. Looking at everyone's horrified expression, Yi Tianyun wants this kind of effect, enough to shock everyone, let them know that it is not that easy to get the inheritance. It just so happens that he wanted to earn some crazy points. Since they want to die, then he won't be polite. Is there no one else? Then I will leave first. Yi Tianyun quickly flew away, leaving a group of people looking at each other. Let's go back and report this matter to the king. Divine messengers Wu Qiu nodded to his companion and quickly left. There are many experts around him to protect him. He is now holding a precious inheritance, so he must have more experts to protect him. Not to mention that Yi Tianyun needs protection, even they have to be careful. Otherwise, they will be in big trouble. The heaven-creating divine king's descendant has appeared, I don't know what other forces will think. Hurry up and report this matter. We must not disrespect him when we see him in the future. One by one, they quickly went back to report this matter. After this incident, Yi Tianyun's reputation will spread throughout the heaven world. This is the effect Yi Tianyun wants. He wants everyone to know that the descendant of heaven-creating divine king has come. So that the descendants of other divine kings will know about him. Tianmei mountain range, Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed. He hasn't seen Shi Shuyan for more than a year. He doesn't know what's going on now. Originally, divine messengers Wu Qiu wanted to take him there, but he refused. There is no need for others to lead the way. Chapter 677. Tianmei mountain range was located in the north of Panyun continent. It was a relatively cold region. If it was an extremely cold region, it probably wouldn't even make it into the top 10. If Yi Tianyun judged based on his previous experience, he would definitely ignore this Tianmei mountain range. With his ice saint physique, Tianmei mountain range was definitely not a suitable place for cultivation. To be precise, it was not the best place for cultivation. The colder the better, the better. Tianmei mountain range didn't have such good conditions. It couldn't even make it into the top 10. However, geniuses that caught one's eye didn't need a lot of resources to be recruited. If that was the case, most people wouldn't have the qualifications to recruit disciples. This is Tianmei mountain range. Yi Tianyun flew for a period of time before arriving at Tianmei mountain range. It had to be said that Tianmei mountain range was very far from heaven ascending divine altar. Even with his shocking speed, it took him more than a week to reach here. If it was someone else, they would have to fly for at least a few months to reach here. Just the distance alone was already considered isolated from the rest of the world. Looking at the environment, it was also isolated from the rest of the world. There were mountains and forests everywhere. There didn't seem to be any signs of human habitation. As far as the eye could see, there wasn't even a single village. It was a desolate mountain range. There really wasn't anyone here. There weren't even any demonic beasts. At most, there were some small animals nearby. There wasn't any lethality at all. However, this place was constantly covered in fog. Although it didn't cover the entire mountain, it only covered the peak of the mountain. It was as if the mountain was like the clouds. As far as the eye could see, there weren't any snowy mountains. It was like spring all year round. What extremely cold region. It was like spring here. What Tianmei mountain range. There wasn't even a single plum flower planted here. There were only some trees. This was only for laymen. Tianyun saw through it with a glance. The white fog here was a bewildering array. It completely covered the true appearance. If it was broken, the true appearance would be revealed in front of him. They're still selecting disciples. Tianyun saw many young men and women at the side. It seemed like they were preparing for a trial. As a hidden clan, it didn't mean that they wouldn't recruit people. No matter what, they needed new blood. Shi Shuyan was the best example. It was better to descend to the mortal world and see if there were any outstanding geniuses. It was not that they chose to live in seclusion, but because they were too weak, they chose to live in seclusion. Otherwise, they would have come out long ago. No power liked to hide. This was especially true for the Tianmei divine clan, who had been awe-inspiring and respected by everyone. Now that he had been reduced to living in seclusion, one couldn't help but sigh at how great the change was. Joining in this way is not a bad choice, Tianyun thought for a moment. He had originally planned to sneak in, but now that he saw that he could select disciples to go in, he might as well take the opportunity to participate in the selection. If he joined in, he would be able to see more things. For example, he could clearly see the nature of the entire faction and know how they treated newcomers, as well as other aspects of the situation. From there, he could know how Shi Shuyan would be treated. Soon after, his figure flashed, and he appeared behind the group of boys and girls, unknowingly following behind them. There were quite a lot of boys and girls in this group. There were more than 50 of them, and they brought back quite a lot of people. They didn't seem to have any big background, at least judging from their clothes, they looked slightly ordinary. They were about 16 or 17 years old, not too big nor too young. Their cultivation was at the body refinement stage. In theory, they were relatively weak, but Tianmei divine clan still managed to recruit them, which was surprising. You guys follow closely, don't get lost. The leader shouted sternly, if you get lost, then you will get lost here, no one will come to find you. The leader was a young man with an ordinary appearance. His cultivation was at the 5th or 6th level of core condensation, which was enough to be a leader. But he was the only one leading the team, and looking at his impatient face, it was obvious that he didn't like this kind of thing. Because of this, he didn't know that there was one more person in the team, and probably didn't even count. Hey, why didn't I see you just now? The strong guy next to Tianyun scratched his head and looked at him in a daze. I guess I went to pee before, so you didn't see me. Tianyun casually made up an excuse. No wonder, don't get lost, it's very dangerous here. The strong guy smiled and said, if I was alone here, I would definitely get lost. Tianyun smiled, this strong guy was interesting, he didn't seem to have any schemes. Immediately, they chatted along the way, and Tianyun roughly knew what kind of people were recruited by Tianmei divine clan, handyman. No wonder they were all older, in theory, it was already too late to cultivate, who didn't cultivate from a young age. Unless they were like Shi Shuyan, who didn't fall behind in the foundation, and only needed to further improve their cultivation. Their cultivation was not high nor low, the body refinement stage was still relatively ordinary, mainly because this cultivation was enough for them to do odd jobs. Sweeping the floor, serving food, and so on, they didn't need to have a high cultivation. But their cultivation would definitely have a breakthrough later, so it didn't matter. They all came from ordinary small families. Because the spiritual power here was rich, they could easily break through to the body refinement stage and officially become a cultivator. In order to break through further, they were willing to join some forces to do odd jobs, see if they could get some opportunities, so that they could have a better breakthrough. The one who talked to Yi Tianyun was called Xiaowu, a very ordinary name, and his family was also very ordinary, otherwise he wouldn't have been arranged to do odd jobs here. But he was simple and honest, he didn't seem to have any schemes, so he was easy to get along with. Apart from Xiaowu, he also talked to the others a little. The rest of them came from ordinary families. There was nothing to say about this. But they all came here with the hope of getting some opportunities. After all, if they served well, they might get some rewards. For example, martial arts, or elixirs. What they wanted was an ordinary grade. No matter what, they wouldn't think of a high grade. This was the difference between people. They really didn't dare to think about those higher grades of martial arts. If they could get human-level martial arts, they would already soar to the sky. This is a microcosm of the cultivation world. Chapter 678. Jiang Hong, you're finally back. Isn't it a little too long? When the leading young man just walked to the intersection in front, another young man immediately walked out and complained, "When did you come back? Isn't it a little too long? Do you think I want to? They're really walking too slowly. If I walk fast, I'm afraid they've already lost their way." Jiang Hong said unhappily, "If you think it's too slow, you can go alone next time if you want to recruit more people." Don't. I'm most afraid of these things. These people are really slow. They're really walking too slowly. Jiang Yi glanced over and immediately saw how many people there were. A total of 57 people. You've chosen quite a lot of people. It's okay. Anyway, they're all selected to do odd jobs. It's fine as long as they look pleasing to the eye. Jiang Hong didn't care about this number at all, let alone think that there was one more. Obviously, he didn't care about this. That's true, but 57 people is a little too much. It seems that at most 15 people will be enough. Now that you've brought back 57. Jiang Yi shook his head. Jiang Hong's expression immediately collapsed. You mean, after 15 people are selected, the rest have to be brought back? It's like this. There's no other way. This is your mission. You can't just leave them here, right? Jiang Yi said helplessly. This is the news that was just passed down. How would I know it would be like this? It's really too much. If you had informed me earlier, I wouldn't have brought back so many people. Jiang Hong felt very dissatisfied. He still had to bring people back. How could he not feel annoyed? After the others heard it, their hearts suddenly sank. They traveled all the way here, but they were told that most of them would be driven back. Wasn't this a bit too much? Everyone, calm down. If the losers go back, we will compensate them. You don't have to worry. Of course, Jiang Yi wouldn't let them come for nothing. He would still give some compensation. However, everyone still felt not very satisfied. Even if the compensation was good, it was definitely not as good as staying in a big force. However, things had already come to this point. They could only do things according to their rules. I want all the women. 3 men will be enough. I don't need too many. Jiang Yi added. This time, many men's faces sank. There were the most men present, so they undoubtedly had to choose from their own group. After all, there would only be 12 women, and the remaining 3 men would be substitutes. This was really cruel, the typical inequality between men and women. How was this even an odd job candidate? It was more like a maidservant. There's a rock here. Try to move it one by one. Those who can't move it will be eliminated. Jiang Yi did not beat around the bush. He gestured for them to move the boulder at the side. It was at least 250 kilograms, so it was not an easy task. Although they felt helpless, they could only move them one by one. Some of them could move, and some of them couldn't. Needless to say, Yi Tianyun was able to stand up easily. However, he did not look relaxed, so he still had to pretend. After moving everything, he sighed inwardly. He felt like he had returned to the time when he was training. Now that he had broken through to become a Saint King, he was still taking the test here. Furthermore, the content of the test was so simple that no one would believe him if he told them about it. He just wanted to go deeper from the bottom and see how Shi Shuyan was doing. It would be even better if he could give her a surprise. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Xiao Wu also advanced smoothly. There was no problem. Otherwise, he would be so strong for nothing. I couldn't tell that you have so much strength. Xiao Wu nudged Yi Tianyun and praised, I thought you would fail. If you failed, it would be such a pity. Then, there would be no one to talk to me. Is there no one to talk to you at home? Yi Tianyun said with a faint smile. Yes. Everyone thinks that I'm too stupid. I can't learn anything. Other than having a little more strength, I don't have any other abilities. Xiao Wu scratched his head and laughed honestly. Having a little more strength is already an ability. Yi Tianyun looked at him meaningfully. If he was not a little older, he would definitely be a promising talent. It was not that he had amazing talent, but that he was gifted with strength. There was a special bloodline power in his body. The appraisal I identified that it was the mighty god bloodline. It was a bloodline that was extremely powerful. However, it was too thin in his body. It could be said to be non-existent. With the improvement of cultivation, it was really possible to stimulate the bloodline further. At that time, the strength would definitely be several times stronger than the same period. This was the horror of the bloodline power. Xiao Wu's ancestor should be a strong person at the Holy King level. Unfortunately, in his generation, it was no different from an ordinary family. There are still more than a dozen people left. Then continue to move this stone. Jiang Yi continued to point at the boulder next to him. It reached more than 900 pounds, almost double. Soon, they took turns to move it. This time, more people were eliminated. All of them failed. No one could move it. When it was his turn, he lifted it gently. It seemed that he used a little bit of strength. He can even lift it. Not bad, not bad. Jiang Yi looked at Yi Tianyun and nodded, good strength. It seems that his cultivation is not low. At least, he is at the 6th or 7th level of the body refinement stage. Almost. Yi Tianyun smiled indifferently and immediately retreated to the side. Others looked at this side with eyes full of jealousy, but that was all. What could they do if they were not as good as others? Immediately, it was Xiao Wu's turn. Xiao Wu came to the side of the boulder, hugged the boulder, and suddenly lifted it. The entire boulder started to move, but just as it was lifted a little, it sank down. Failure. Jiang Yi shook his head. Just when he thought that Xiao Wu could not move it, Xiao Wu roared and his face was red. A surge of blood rushed out of his whole body, as if he had become a circle bigger. Rise for me. Xiao Wu roared and actually lifted the huge rock by force. This caused the others to be dumbfounded. This was simply innate divine strength. Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. Just now, Xiao Wu obviously used the mighty god's bloodline. It made his original cultivation of the 2nd level of the body refinement stage burst out with the power that was not even comparable to the 5th or 6th level of the body refinement stage. It was really terrible. Good boy, natural divine power. Jiang Yi praised. What's the use of it? No matter how strong they are, aren't they still doing odd jobs? At this age, can they still have a future of cultivation? Jiang Hong next to him sneered. Looking at Yi Tianyun and Xiao Wu, his eyes were full of contempt. From the beginning, he looked down on this group of people. No matter how good their performance was, they had missed the best time to cultivate. Chapter 679. Jiang Yi and the others felt that Xiao Wu and the others had no future, but Yi Tianyun did not think so. He had indeed missed the best period in terms of age. It did not mean that he would not have any achievements in the future. With the mighty god's bloodline alone, it proved that Xiao Wu still had great potential. Now that he could use a little of the mighty god's bloodline, it meant that this bloodline was not useless, and it was not always buried in the body and could not be triggered. Just this point alone, Yi Tianyun felt that Xiao Wu was definitely a general. With a little training, he would advance by leaps and bounds. However, he had to find suitable martial arts for him. If it was too difficult, he might not be able to cultivate. Xiao Wu's talent was indeed not very good. The strength of the bloodline had nothing to do with talent. After all, it was an inheritance. No matter how bad his talent was, he could still inherit it. I almost couldn't move it, and then I would have to go back to farming. Xiao Wu scratched his head. His breath had returned to normal, and he felt as if nothing had happened. No, you don't have to go back to farming no matter what. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. He felt that Xiao Wu was very good. He could take him as his subordinate and take him away. With a little training, he would definitely become a general. He was born with divine strength and did not need particularly powerful martial arts. He could slap people to death with one slap. This was a bit similar to the evil spirit's bloodline. After it broke out, his strength would increase greatly. The terrifying power could split hard weapons with one palm. Who could resist it? Speaking of which, he had a pile of these things in his inventory, but he did not study them too carefully. Seeing Xiao Wu's situation, he could see if the evil spirit's bloodline could be applied to Xiao Wu. The evil spirit race was actually not a truly evil race. It was just their greed that led to their demise. Swords could also kill people, so let's see how to use them. Unless one had to drink tens of millions of blood every day to cultivate after absorbing that kind of bloodline, he would not let anyone cultivate. The evil spirit race's bloodline did not need to do that. They just felt that the phoenix race's bloodline could increase their strength, so they wanted to catch it and devour it. It was that simple. Is that so? Brother Yi's words are really nice. Xiao Wu smiled honestly and said, they all say that I can only farm and can replace many cows. That's them, it's really too wasteful. It was really wasteful to let Xiao Wu plow the fields. He used the mighty god's bloodline on the fields. If the god of strength was still alive, he would have vomited 3 liters of blood. Using his own strength to plow the fields, how could he not vomit blood? Alright, it's just the 2 of you. The rest of you can go back. Jiang Yi gestured for the others to leave. This time, the rest of the people were dumbfounded. One of them stood up and said hurriedly, isn't it just choosing 2 people? Where's the other one? Only Yi Tianyun and Xiao Wu could lift the second boulder, and the others could not move it. But they had said at the beginning that they would choose 3 people. Now there were only 2 people, which was obviously wrong. The 2 of them are strong enough to take on a few of you. Besides, none of you passed, so there's no need for them. Jiang Yi shook his head. Yi Tianyun and the rest were strong enough to take on a few of them. Originally, it was mainly for women. The men were basically chopping firewood and the like, so there was no need for too many of them. Since Jiang Yi had already said so, they could only leave helplessly. Before leaving, Jiang Yi gave them a lot of body refining pills, which were good for their cultivation and were also the cheapest pills. Spending a little money, they could refine a large batch of pills, which was the most suitable to send them away. After they got it, they were indeed very happy. Although they were somewhat reluctant, it was still very good to get a lot of body refining pills back. Using these body refining pills, they could break through 1 or 2 levels of cultivation, which was already quite satisfactory for them. You 2 come with me. Jiang Heng, you send them back. Jiang Yi waved his hand and comforted them, when you come back, I'll treat you to a drink. Okay. Jiang Heng's face fell and continued to take them back the way they came. He did not even wait for them to have a good rest. Although there were some complaints, everyone still followed and left together. Many of the female disciples who stayed were very excited. It was definitely a good thing that none of them failed. I didn't expect that only the two of us could pass. This is really a bit too harsh. Xiaowu said. There's not much need for male disciples to do odd jobs. It's normal for them to choose like this. Yi Tianyun shook his head. The waitress must be a woman, he has never seen a man serving a woman. For example, a man serving others to take a bath? Obviously, no one would be happy to do so. Shortly after, Jiang Yi led the 14 of them forward, reminding them along the way, follow me closely, don't get lost. As he spoke, he entered the forest, his hands constantly forming hand seals. The others looked around curiously. Every environment here was filled with novelty. The array here is not bad. It will take a lot of effort for ordinary cultivators to break in. Yi Tianyun nodded. The ordinary cultivators that Yi Tianyun mentioned were at least at the Spirit King stage. If they were too weak, they wouldn't be able to enter. Under Jiang Yi's lead, they quickly passed through the forest. After passing through the forest, the first thing they felt was a cold wind blowing on their face, and then they immediately smelled a faint fragrance of plum blossoms. The first thing they saw was a snowy mountain with plum blossoms planted on it. In this snowy world, there were countless pink embellishments. The plum blossoms here were called heavenly plum, which was a higher grade than ordinary plum blossoms. It meant that the plum blossoms planted on the snowy mountain were a large piece of third-grade spirit medicine. It's amazing. I have never seen such a magical thing. It was a green field just now, but now it has become a snowy field. Xiaowu was surprised. Yi Tianyun has already expected this, he has already seen through the situation here from the outside, and clearly saw the environment inside. This place was not bad. The ice attribute's spiritual energy was relatively rich. It was a suitable place for cultivators with ice attribute physique. Yi Tianyun's mouth curved into a smile. He didn't even need to force his way in. If he forced his way in, it would really take him some time. Although he was confident that he could break it, it would still take him some time to sneak in from the side. It would be faster to break in from the door, but it would be too sudden. The other party didn't kill his father. If he treated Shi Xuan well, why would he make such a big fuss? It would only be tantamount to returning evil for good. When Shi Xuan was taken away from the Heavenly Cloud's empire, the other party didn't make things difficult for her. He even gave her a lot of treasures. Chapter 680. Jiang Yi soon took them to the residence, a relatively simple place. In fact, it was a hut built with simple planks. It looked simple and crude, but after they entered, they felt warm inside. They didn't expect that there was such a big gap. They all thought it was a simple wooden hut, but they didn't know it was so luxurious. It's so warm inside. When it's so cold in my house, I can only light a fire to keep warm. Otherwise, it's useless. Xiaowu was very surprised by the situation here. Yi Tianyun smiled. These huts looked very simple, but they were built with the trunk of Tianmei tree, which had the effect of absolute heat preservation. As long as they didn't go out, they wouldn't feel cold wearing thin clothes here. Their cultivation was so low that they couldn't be impervious to fire and water for the time being, so they would still be prepared to live in. Jiang Yi immediately told them the rules. Generally, he told them not to run around. If they were caught running around, they would not only be driven out, but also might be punished. After that, he let them rest here and arrange other work after a period of time. They had just arrived, and after a long journey, they would be given a good rest. The men and women rested separately. He and Xiaowu were arranged to stay in one of the huts, and the other girls were arranged to stay in several huts on the side, so it was not crowded. Xiaowu, you stay here and rest. I'll go out first. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. He didn't come in to do odd jobs. It was a joke for a holy king to do odd jobs. Brother Yi, you can't do that. If you go out, what if you are driven out? Xiao Wu said hurriedly. Xiao Wu was really loyal and honest, and he was very well behaved. It should be said that the newcomers were very well behaved, and they didn't dare to be presumptuous here. No, I won't. Just stay here. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, and you won't stay here for too long. Staying here will only waste your potential. Brother Yi, what do you mean? Xiao Wu scratched his head in confusion, but Yi Tianyun had already left. When he opened the door and went out, he couldn't see his figure anymore. After leaving, Yi Tianyun walked towards the most important area of the Tianmei mountain range, the Tianmei Palace. There were many tall buildings on this huge snowy mountain. They overlapped with the rise and fall of the snowy mountain. It looked very normal. In reality, this was a great array. Every palace was like the eye of the array. When necessary, it could erupt with an extremely powerful force to block attacks from the outside world. Every building here was not built randomly. Instead, they were closely coordinated. It had to be said that the person who built this formation was definitely a powerhouse comparable to the creator. In terms of attainment, Qin Wentian should be at the peak of the Divine Inscription's Grandmaster realm. Most probably, he was already half a step into the creator realm. His gaze swept to the side, taking in the surroundings in panoramic view. Not a single detail could escape his eyes. Even if it was the creator's divine rune, he could still see through it and see every detail clearly. Soon, he found Shi Shuiyan's location. He was delighted. She's really here. I was right. His heart was filled with excitement. It seemed that all his efforts were not in vain. In fact, when he just came in, he saw the clothes of some disciples on the road, so he knew that he was not in the wrong place. Aunt, I'm coming. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed, and his figure immediately disappeared. As long as it was not a Saint King stage powerhouse, no one would be able to find him. At the same time, in the Tianmei Palace, Shi Shuiyan looked at the snowy scenery outside the window. Her beautiful eyes were filled with faint sadness, but her aura was much stronger than before. She was at the third layer of Void Spirit stage. This kind of rapid progress was really terrifying. In just a little more than a year, she broke through to the third layer of Void Spirit stage. It was incredible. More than a year ago, she broke through to the third layer of Void Spirit stage. But now, not only did she break through to the core transformation stage, but she also broke through to the third layer of Void Spirit stage. At this speed, it wouldn't take too long for her to break through to the Spirit King stage. Tianyun, as long as my cultivation continues to grow stronger, I will be able to go out and help you find my sister and the others. How are you now? Shi Shuiyan's beautiful eyes were filled with longing. Obviously, there was no figure in front of her, but Yi Tianyun's figure was reflected in her eyes. Knock knock knock, at this time, someone knocked on the door. Shi Shuiyan's eyes became cold, but she didn't turn around. Young Master Mei, I'm tired. I don't want to see anyone today. Shi Shuiyan said indifferently. Gah. The door was still pushed open, and a handsome young man walked in carrying a piece of precious jade. As soon as he walked in, the precious jade released a faint light, appearing very cold. However, if a knowledgeable person saw it, they would immediately know that it was very helpful for their cultivation. Shuiyun, I brought you a piece of cold ice divine jade. It will be very helpful for your cultivation. I know you are tired, but if you use this jade to cultivate, you will get twice the result with half the effort. Young Master Mei smiled faintly. His handsome face was definitely a girl killer. Coupled with his amazing cultivation, 8th level of Void Spirit stage, he was even more attractive. Thank you for young Master Mei's kindness, I appreciate your kindness, and don't call me Shuiyan, just call me junior sister. Shi Shuiyan turned her head, her expression was still cold, she was not moved at all. Shuiyun, don't be like this. Young Master Mei walked over and wanted to grab Shi Shuiyan's small hand. Shi Shuiyan lightly moved back, and her expression was incomparably cold. Young Master Mei, please conduct yourself with dignity, Shi Shuiyan said in a deep voice. Young Master Mei's face immediately collapsed, and she said coldly, Shuiyun, do you think I don't know what you are thinking? You keep shouting, Tianyun, Tianyun. I don't know who this Tianyun is. Even if he is your Tao companion or the person you like now, do you think his status is higher than mine? I am the young master of Heavenly Plum Divine Clan. In the future, I have a great chance to become the patriarch of Heavenly Plum Divine Clan. You and I can't go wrong. Moreover, our physiques are very suitable. If we become Tao companions, we will get twice the result with half the effort. Young Master Mei's eyes were full of fanaticism and possessiveness. He longed for Shi Shuiyan very much. Whether it was talent or appearance, Shi Shuiyan was top-notch. If she became his Tao companion, he would get twice the result with half the effort in the future. At that time, his cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds, and he would have a greater capital to become the patriarch. Becoming the patriarch of Heavenly Plum Divine Clan would be a high and mighty existence. How could it not be tempting? Chapter 681. Young Master Mei was indeed the young master of Tian Mei Divine Clan. Her talent was not low, and she was very likely to become the next patriarch. After becoming the patriarch, it meant that her status would be greatly improved, and she would have the power to kill. It stands to reason that young Master Mei is indeed a very good candidate, but Shi Shuiyan is unmoved and has no interest at all. Not interested? Young Master Mei was stunned for a moment, and then she immediately said angrily, I don't know who this Tianyun is, but I can crush him with one finger. You have been here for so long, I believe you should know the power of our Tian Mei Divine Clan, right? Can your mortal world's power compare to our Tian Mei Divine Clan? If we send a few Spirit King stage cultivators down there, do you think the mortal world's forces can withstand our anger? Young Mistress Mei immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation when she saw that her fawning had failed. She then shouted in a threatening tone. Shi Shuiyan's cold eyes pierced through young Master Mei's eyes, and the latter felt like he was about to be killed. The murderous intent was so strong that it went straight to the bottom of his heart, and it made him shiver. Young Master Mei's cultivation was obviously higher, but he felt like he was about to be killed. Do you dare to try? Shi Shuiyan's voice was cold, and in an instant, the surroundings were covered with a layer of ice. It seems like your wings have hardened. Young Master Mei said coldly, don't forget how you came up here. Did our Tian Mei Divine Clan treat you badly? If it weren't for us, do you think you can break through your cultivation so fast? Don't think I don't know what you are thinking. You will definitely choose to leave this place after your cultivation breakthrough, so that you can find your little lover. Let me tell you, no way. Once you enter the Tian Mei Divine Clan, you can't leave this place, and you can't marry anyone, you can only marry someone from the same clan. What? Shi Shuiyan's face sank. Impossible. Master told me that it's not like that. You mean Elder Wan? She said that it's another matter, but in the end, she still has to listen to the Great Elder, which is my mother's approval. Young Mistress Mei looked at Shi Shuiyan's unsightly expression, and her heart was filled with joy. For your own safety, for the safety of your mortal world's forces, I advise you to recognize the truth. Once the Heavenly Plum Divine Clan comes into being, it will become a powerful divine nation. Let me ask you, can your forces resist the power of a divine nation? Their information was still lagging behind, and they had already become an empire. Of course, even if they became an empire, it was still a piece of cake for God Nation. What's the situation? At this time, a woman walked in from outside. When she saw the two of them together, she frowned. Young Master Mei, what are you doing here? Master. When Shi Shuiyan saw the person who had come, she said in a deep voice, Master, does this disciple lose her freedom and can only stay here and marry someone from the Heavenly Plum Divine race? Shuiyun, this. Elder Wan said awkwardly. This disciple just wants to ask, yes or no. Shi Shuyan's voice was extremely cold. Yes. I think this is good. Marrying someone from the same clan is good enough. As long as they are from the same clan, you can choose anyone you like. Elder Wan explained. Enough. Shi Shuyan said in a deep voice, Master, this is different from what you told me before. I know that I came here to repay the clan, but you didn't say anything about restricting my freedom, nor did you say anything about who I can marry. There was no free lunch in this world. She wouldn't abandon the heavenly plum divine race. She just came here to do some things and protect the forces in the mortal world. It was that simple. She could always risk her life for the heavenly plum divine race and make many contributions in return. However, there was one exception, and that was if she was forced to marry someone from the heavenly plum divine race. This was something she definitely wasn't willing to do. Her previous promise didn't include this. You're too naive. Do you think that the heavenly plum divine race can come and go as you please? We've invested so many resources on you, we definitely won't let you go. As if a bucket of cold water had been poured on young Master Mei, she said coldly, do you think that I'm not worthy of you? Or do you think that the person you like is more powerful? Although I've never seen him, I dare say that he can crush him like an ant with one finger. Shui Yun, with your bloodline, marrying into the heavenly plum divine race is the best choice. Forget everything in the past. This way, you can also stabilize your forces. The person you care about will definitely understand. Elder Wan persuaded. Shi Shuyan looked at them coldly. After a moment, she said coldly, I said at the beginning that I would only join if you give me freedom. Now, you're going back on your words. I'm really disappointed. So what if you're going back on your words? This is the result. Do you have any other choice? Young Master Mei waved her hand and said indifferently, marrying me won't waste your talent. It's 1,000,000 times better than marrying that brat you care about. No, you're not even as good as a strand of his hair. Shi Shuyan said mockingly. It seems that you won't repent until you see the coffin. Let me lock you up in the ice cage. Think about what you've done wrong. Young Master Mei's hands glowed with a cold light. She wanted to forcefully control Shi Shuyan. Elder Wan sighed, but didn't try to dissuade her. Master, I didn't expect that you would have such a plan from the beginning. Shi Shuyan shook her head. She felt that the relationship between master and disciple was quickly disappearing. I have no other choice. Your physique is rare, and it can help our heavenly plum divine clan nurture a stronger life form. Elder Wan sighed. The heavenly plum divine clan was gradually declining, and they needed a very strong genius to maintain it. They couldn't let Shi Shuyan go. She was a woman who could nurture a strong future generation. It seems that I can only force my way out. Shi Shuyan unsheathed her sword and prepared to resist. Force your way out. Do you think you have the chance? Young Master Mei laughed. You're the only one here. How are you going to escape? Let me tell you. As long as you're in the heaven realm, you won't be able to escape from me. Just obediently surrender. Don't force me to hurt you. I'll feel sorry for you. Shi Shuyan's face turned solemn. Even her master was on young Master Mei's side. She really couldn't escape. Tian Yun. She murmured. She felt that she had made the wrong choice. It was better to stay in the mortal world. However, it was too late to regret now. Tian Yun couldn't possibly appear here. It didn't matter if he was in the heaven realm or the remote heavenly plum divine race. Oh, you dare to touch my woman? You're really brave. Chapter 682. Shi Shuyan couldn't believe her own eyes. The person she had been dreaming of had actually appeared in front of her. This was the heaven realm, the heavenly plum god clan. The security outside was very tight. It was unbelievable that he could actually barge in. Am I seeing things? Shi Shuyan was stunned. You're not seeing things. Aunt, I'm here to pick you up. Tianyun smiled as he walked in. His smile was filled with warmth, enough to melt any coldness. Tianyun. Shi Shuyan threw herself into Tianyun's embrace without hesitation. When she felt that warm embrace and that familiar temperature, she knew that it wasn't an illusion. I'm not seeing things. You really came. I thought that I would never see you again in this lifetime. Shi Shuyan's eyes were red as she buried herself into Tianyun's embrace. If she was strong before, she would have become a little girl now. A little girl that was worthy of being protected. I should be the one saying that. I thought that I would never see you again in this lifetime. Aunt, you actually ran around. You came to the heaven realm without my permission. You really made me look for you. Tianyun blamed her, but his tone didn't have the slightest hint of blame. There was only joy. When this scene fell into the eyes of young Master Mei on the side, anger and jealousy surged from the heart, especially at the moment when Shi Shuyan threw herself into his arms. It was even more angry. You're the Tianyun that Shuyan keeps talking about, right? How did you come in? How dare you trespass into the heavenly plum palace? You're courting death. Before young Master Mei finished her sentence, she had already stretched out her hand to slap Tianyun away. When Shi Shuyan saw this, she was shocked. When she wanted to help Tianyun block this palm, Tianyun was still hugging her lightly. He turned his head and looked coldly at young Master Mei. He lightly said, Is Shuyan someone you can call? Scram! A beam of cold light shot out from his eyes and bombarded young Master Mei's soul. Young Mistress Mei's body trembled. She was forced to take a few steps back and almost fell to the ground. He's a soul cultivator. Young Mistress Mei felt as if her soul was about to be torn apart. Her pale complexion was the best proof. Just a light exhalation was enough to make his soul feel as if it had suffered a heavy blow, and he almost fainted. Soul cultivators were cultivators who specialized in soul attacks. They were able to attack from a distance and were relatively difficult to cultivate. Generally speaking, soul cultivators were pretty good divine inscriptionists. If it weren't for the fact that Shi Shuyan was fine, he would have killed him immediately. After all, Shi Shuyan had benefited a lot from staying here. When he saw that Shi Shuyan's cultivation had a big breakthrough, he knew that it was good to stay here. This way, he would give the Heavenly Plum Divine Clan some face. Otherwise, young Master Mei would have already become a corpse. Looks like you have some ability. No wonder you could sneak in. I don't know how you snuck in, but you can't take her away just because you want to. Young Mistress Mei didn't retreat. She stared at Tianyun and said coldly, This is the Heavenly Plum Divine Clan, and she is a member of the clan. Even if she dies, she will still be a ghost of the clan. If it weren't for us, Shi Shuyan wouldn't have such achievements. It's us who made her, it's us who nurtured her. We spent so much effort to nurture her, and you want to take her away. I'm telling you right now, it's impossible. Even you can't walk out of this door as you wish. Trespassing into the Heavenly Plum Divine Palace is a dead end. Young Mistress Mei was quite courageous. She wasn't afraid of Tianyun at all, but she was still a little afraid. For example, she didn't dare to call Shi Shuyan anymore. Instead, she used her full name. The shock to her soul had left a lingering fear in her heart. Elder Wan looked at the two of them and sighed deeply. Young Mistress Mei was right. I don't know where this friend came from, but trespassing is a big crime. Elder Wan sighed and said, Shuyan, you should persuade him to come with us. This way, we can be lenient. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Young Mistress Mei sneered coldly. Her eyes were full of contempt. This was his territory. How could he not be unyielding? Elder Wan, at this time, Jiang Yi walked in from outside. He was about to report when he saw Tianyun. He was stunned. Didn't you just join the odd job team? Why are you here? Odd job team? Young Mistress May was stunned for a moment. Then, she laughed and said, I was wondering what kind of situation it was. So, you came in as an odd job team. You do have some skills. No wonder you could come in. If it wasn't for someone bringing you in, you would have been walking around in circles until you died. So, you came in as an odd job team. Your wits are not bad. It's just that you used it in the wrong place. That's one more crime. Elder Wan said coldly, Shui Yun, seeing that you have a good relationship with him, as long as he is willing to leave and you are willing to stay here, I will not pursue this matter. When Shi Shuyan was about to speak, Yi Tianyun gently pulled her hand. He looked at them indifferently. Oh, I want to ask. You said that you spent a lot of resources. How many resources do you have? Tell me. How many resources did you give me? I will pay you back double. Pay you back double? Do you think you can afford it? Young Mistress May looked him up and down. Her face was full of disdain. I'm willing to pay you back double because you didn't mistreat my aunt. If you hurt my aunt, Tianmei divine clan will no longer exist in this world. Yi Tianyun said coldly. Shi Shuyan's beautiful eyes shrunk. She tightened her grip on Yi Tianyun's hand. Then, a sweet smile appeared on her face. What a big talk. No wonder you didn't want to accept Yi Ming's pursuit. It turns out that you like this arrogant kid. No one is allowed to leave today. I will stand here and see how dare you take away my aunt in front of me. At this time, a beautiful woman walked in from the outside. Young Mistress May looked a bit like her. She was Mei Yiming's mother, the great elder of Tianmei divine clan. Mother. Great elder. When Mei Yiming saw his mother coming over, he was overjoyed. This time, he was even more confident. As the great elder of Tianmei clan, her cultivation was at the 8th or 9th layer of Spirit King stage. Shi Shuyan's heart tightened when she saw the great elder. She was worried about Yi Tianyun. The great elder was a powerful Spirit King stage cultivator. She was worried about Yi Tianyun's safety. Chapter 683. As expected of a brat from the mortal realm. Do you know what kind of power you are facing? Your ignorance proves that the cultivators in the mortal realm are mediocre. Elder Mei looked at him coldly, her eyes filled with contempt and disdain. She looked at Yi Tianyun as if he was an idiot, a brat who had just come to the city from a mountain village. He had no idea what kind of power this city had. Why don't you consider your own level? Compared to my son, you are far behind. My son has an ice elemental body. If he marries with Shui Yun, he will definitely give birth to an even stronger descendant. What about you? A mere human with no bloodline, what right do you have to take her away? Just because of your love? What a joke, childish. I'll give you a chance to get out of here. For Shui Yun's sake, as long as you obediently become my son's Tao companion, I won't pursue what you said before. At the same time, I'll give you 2 sacred instruments, 10 million spiritual stones, and 10 grade 5 pills. Take this reward and go back to the mortal realm. I'm afraid most of the forces in the mortal realm cannot afford this reward. It will be enough for you to use for a long time. Elder Mei was furious, but she was also very rational. If they killed Yi Tianyun, Shi Shuyan would undoubtedly be very sad. It would be troublesome if she committed suicide. The best way was to let Yi Tianyun take the reward and leave. This would make Shi Shuyan give up. Only after she gave up would she be willing to accept them and Mei Yiming. 2 sacred instruments, 10 million spiritual stones, and 10 grade 5 pills. Yi Tianyun sneered. To him, this was a pile of trash. Not to mention 2 sacred tools, even if there are 10 divine tools, compared to Shi Shuyan, it is garbage. What, is it not enough? Elder Mei smiled faintly. I'll give you a heaven-tier martial art and a grade 6 pill. What do you think? She was looking forward to Yi Tianyun taking these items and leaving. No one could resist this temptation, especially those from the mortal realm. In her opinion, the cultivators in the mortal world were just low-level cultivators. Who wouldn't be jealous if they were paid more? Giving up so many good things for a woman. Unless one's head was kicked, anyone would know which one to choose. Mei Yiming was also ridiculing Yi Tianyun. He felt that Yi Tianyun would definitely choose these rewards and leave. To him, the cultivators in the mortal world were the same as the poor. They didn't even exist on the same plane. I'll give you 5 sacred artifacts, 50 million spirit stones, 50 tier 5 elixirs, and 5 heaven-class martial arts. Now can you get out of my sight? Don't use these rubbish to measure the value of Shuayun. These are not worthy. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, since you didn't mistreat Shuayun, what I said just now is compensation. Elder Wan's eyes widened. Could Yi Tianyun really take out these things? These were things that even ordinary empires couldn't take out. Only divine nations could take out so many things. They didn't know if it was a boast or the truth. Boasting again. With your poor appearance, how can you take out so many treasures? Mei Yiming mocked, don't tell me you're going to add that I'll give you a few decades to gather them all. If you can take them out immediately, I'll walk upside down in the future. Idiot. Buzz. The 5 divine tools were stabbed into the ground by him, easily sinking into the ground. When everyone saw this, they were immediately stunned. These really were 5 divine tools. 5 sacred artifacts. Actually, it's not enough. I'll add the sacred artifact armor to make up for the other things. Yi Tianyun took out another pile of armor. They were all sacred artifacts. These were the sacred artifacts that he had killed before. Now, they were thrown on the ground like scrap metal. He said indifferently, now you can walk upside down. Everyone was dumbfounded. Previously, they thought that Yi Tianyun was bragging. Who knew that he would really take out a pile of sacred artifacts? There were at least a dozen of them. They were definitely enough to make up for the spirit stones and elixirs he had. Since the other party wanted to humiliate him with wealth, he would use even more wealth to humiliate him. He was clearly talking about 5 sacred artifacts. What a pile of trash. This is impossible. Where did you get so many sacred artifacts? You must have stolen them. After Mei Yiming came back to his senses, he pointed at Yi Tianyun in embarrassment and anger. He definitely wouldn't admit to what he had just said. Going back on your words immediately. Just like you, going back on your words. This is the kind of person I hate the most in my life. Yi Tianyun looked at Elder Wan coldly. He had heard their conversation earlier. Elder Wan fell silent and didn't refute. That was because what Yi Tianyun had said was the truth. After deceiving him, he would slowly lead him. I don't know where you got so many sacred artifacts from, but I want to say, either you take them away or you die here. Make your choice. Elder Mei said coldly, Shuayun will definitely stay here. No matter who comes, they won't be able to take her away. Elder Mei didn't think that Yi Tianyun would really take out so many treasures. It was really a heavy slap to her face. Oh, it seems that you people are a little too blindly arrogant. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, you people were glorious in the past. Do you think that the world is still yours now? I'm afraid that you people aren't even in the top 10 now. Being arrogant here will only make you look even more ignorant. You. Elder Mei was about to explode from anger. Elder Wan was even more shocked. She didn't think that Yi Tianyun would dare to say such a thing. Such words were no different from sentencing himself to death and insulting the dignity of the entire Tian Mei Celestial clan. This was the last thing the Tian Mei Celestial clan wanted to hear, saying that they were too weak and no longer had the glory of the past. It seems that you want to die here. There are some things that you shouldn't say, but you still dare to say them. No matter what, you will die here today. Elder Mei's Spirit King stage aura immediately burst out of her body, and a terrifying power pressed down on everyone present. Tianyun, their power. But just when Shi Shuyan wanted to say something, Tianyun shook his head. Don't worry, just follow behind me, I will protect you. Tianyun smiled faintly, which made Shi Shuyan feel at ease. She felt that even if the world collapsed, Tianyun would be there to support her. Then, he turned to look at Elder May and said in the same cold voice, I will say it again, those who stop me will die. My patience has run out. From the beginning, you wanted to keep me here, but you still talked a lot of nonsense to embarrass me. Let me tell you, you son, you want to marry my aunt. You can't even compare to a hair of my aunt, and you still want to marry her. Chapter 684. Facing such terrifying power, Tianyun was not afraid at all, but Shi Shuyan's heart was filled with worry. Although Tianyun's cultivation was not bad, she knew that Elder May was even stronger. After not seeing Tianyun for so long, she did not know how strong Tianyun's cultivation was. However, looking at Tianyun's calm expression, her heart gradually calmed down. She knew that Tianyun would never do something he was not sure of. Her hand felt warm, and her heart felt calm, as if time had stopped. You shameless couple, let go of me. Mei Yiming suddenly attacked from the side, and without hesitation, he slashed down with his sword, wanting to cut off Tianyun's arm. From the beginning, he had been very jealous and angry. Shi Shuyan took the initiative to hold Tianyun's hand, how could he not go crazy with jealousy? From the beginning, he felt that Shi Shuyan was his woman, and now that Tianyun came out and took the initiative to throw himself into his arms, he was about to explode. Finally, he could not bear it anymore, and immediately pulled out his sword, wanting to cut off Tianyun's arm. The strength of the sword swept up a wave of cold air, without the slightest bit of mercy. If the sword slashed down heavily, his arm would really be gone, and even his whole body would be frozen. Ignorant. Tianyun's palm shot out with one hand, it looks as calm as water, there is no power in it, it's just a gentle wave of his hand. Bang! Mei Yiming screamed in pain, and was sent flying, crashing through the thick wall, and falling into the snow. Immediately, the white snow was dyed red, and Elder Wan turned her head to look, and found that there was a palm print on Mei Yiming's chest, deeply imprinted on it. A Void Spirit Stage 8th level expert was completely crippled with a light wave of his hand, and he was already at his last breath. Ming. Elder Mei screamed and quickly flew out to pick up her son. At this time, Mei Yiming's 7 orifices were bleeding, and he was barely breathing. All the bones in his body were completely shattered by this palm, and none of them were intact. On the surface, there seemed to be no problem, but in fact, the inside had already been shattered. Even with healing divine pills, there was no way to save him. After all, not only were his bones shattered, even his internal organs were shattered. How could he be saved? If it wasn't for the fact that his skin was harder, he would have turned into a puddle of blood. How could Tianyun spare him? When it was time to kill, he would not show any mercy. He had already given them a chance. Not only were they overbearing, but Mei Yiming also launched a sneak attack. That was a dead end for them. I've said it before. Those who block me will die. Tianyun led Shi Shuyan out of the room, completely ignoring Elder Mei who was lying on the side. Shi Shuyan was shocked. Although she was prepared, killing Mei Yiming in one move was really powerful. What was his real cultivation level? Middle stage Spirit King, or late stage? You actually killed Ming, I want you dead. Elder Mei was like a madwoman as she screamed and pounced towards them. The surrounding snow was swept up and turned into a terrifying blizzard that swept towards them. In an instant, a top-notch sacred tool appeared in her hand. The extreme cold condensed into a huge sword, and as she slashed, all the cold in the surroundings was instantly sucked out, and the sword slashed down heavily. It could also cut through the void. She had an amazing ice elemental body, slightly inferior to the ice sacred body, but it was still very powerful. With a special physique, it could greatly increase her strength. For example, the current attack could automatically condense the surrounding ice spiritual power, forming a kind of power buff. In fact, it meant that the attribute was extremely close. Under this slash, his battle power soared to more than 1 billion, which was quite shocking. But was 1 billion battle power meaningful to him? Of course not. Get lost. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand, and the effect of the desolate equipment quickly stacked up. With the double ring and the necklace's effect, the power of his finger was as high as 7 to 8 billion. Boom! With a light flick, the gigantic sword of ice immediately shattered into a pile of ice shards and fell to the ground. What was even more terrifying was that the power of that one finger seemed to be able to break through space itself. It pierced through the sky and crashed into Elder May's body. Bang! Elder May, who was in the air, was blown away by the finger, and quickly fell from the sky and sank into the thick snow. Huh? Not dead yet? Yi Tianyun looked at the side in surprise. Although the power of this finger was not strong, at least it was not something that a Spirit King stage cultivator could resist. But Elder May was not dead, and he was afraid that she had some kind of treasure on her. Sure enough, Elder May immediately bounced up from the snow. There was a light covering her body, but now she was very weak. She was also seriously injured, but because of the protective magic treasure, she did not die, but only suffered serious injuries. How can he be so strong? Fear gripped Elder May's heart. How could such a young man possess such terrifying power? She was a dignified Spirit King stage cultivator, but she couldn't even resist a finger attack from Yi Tianyun. This meant that the young boy in front of her was at the peak of Spirit King stage or Saint King stage. Elder Wan, who was standing on the side, was also dumbfounded. Her cultivation was far weaker than Elder May, but she was blown away by Yi Tianyun's finger attack. If it wasn't for her protective magic treasure, she would have been dead by now. This terrifying power made her tremble in fear. No wonder he was so calm before. It turned out that he was not stupid, but everything was under his control. In the face of absolute power, no matter what schemes and tricks he used, they were just a pile of garbage. Tianyun, your power. Shi Shuiyun was shocked. Although she had expected that Yi Tianyun would be very strong, she still couldn't believe that Yi Tianyun was so strong. The Spirit King stage cultivator who was trying to catch up with Yi Tianyun's attack couldn't even withstand a single flick from Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun's flick was as light as a speck of dust. I told you, I will protect you for the rest of my life. Yi Tianyun smiled. Only in front of Shi Shuiyun, he could show such a smile. Shi Shuiyun felt very warm in her heart, as if nothing else mattered as long as Yi Tianyun was by her side. What happened? Elder May asked. They were in the Tian Mei Palace, which was one of the most important areas of the Tian Mei divine clan. If something happened, they would definitely rush over immediately. He is an intruder. He wants to destroy our Tian Mei Palace. He wants to steal our Tian Mei divine clan's treasure. Elder May started to slander Yi Tianyun, saying that he came here to steal the treasure. Chapter 685. What? There's an intruder. The elders of the Heavenly Plum God clan rushed over and stared at Yi Tianyun murderously. Other than Yi Tianyun, there were no unfamiliar faces. Jiang Yi and the others were familiar faces. However, they were terrified. Jiang Yi was trembling all over. He was the one who brought Yi Tianyun into the Heavenly Plum God clan. If the matter was investigated, wouldn't it mean that he brought an intruder into the Heavenly Plum God clan? If that happened, he would definitely be severely punished. The most important thing was that he didn't know that Yi Tianyun was so powerful. Even the Great Elder was almost killed by a single palm strike. Jiang Yi's legs were trembling in fear. That's right. He is an intruder. After we saw through his plan, he killed us immediately. Even my son was killed. Mei Yiming, who was in Elder May's arms, had already stopped breathing. If he was still alive, Yi Tianyun would have spared his life. He was a stubborn person. Of course, he was now completely dead. He was not like Elder Mei, who had a powerful protective magic treasure. When the elders felt that Mei Yiming was dead, they were shocked. They were even more shocked when they saw that Elder Mei was severely injured. Although Elder Mei's cultivation wasn't the best, she was definitely one of the top 10 elders in the Heavenly Plum God clan. If she was injured so easily, it meant that the intruder was very strong. A woman's heart is the most vicious. Intruder. If you didn't take away my woman, do you think I would have broken in? Yi Tianyun looked at Elder Wan and said, don't you want to stop them? Don't blame me for being merciless when I destroy half of the Heavenly Plum God clan. Although he didn't mind killing, this matter was only limited to Elder Mei. If she didn't instigate it, this wouldn't have happened. Elders, please don't be impulsive. He is an intruder, but he didn't come for our treasure. Please don't be hasty. Elder Wan tried to persuade them. She knew how powerful Yi Tianyun was. If they really fought to the death, it wouldn't be good. Elder Mei's son was dead. It was normal for her to lose her mind. She only wanted the Heavenly Plum God clan to suppress Yi Tianyun. She didn't think about anything else. Elder Wan, you're protecting an intruder. I suspect you are a traitor. You're protecting him. If it wasn't for you, he wouldn't be able to sneak in so easily. Elder Mei, who had lost her mind, was like a crazy woman. She even slandered Elder Wan and instantly became a traitor. Elder Wan's expression was ugly. This Elder Mei had gone crazy. For her sake, she would not care about the consequences. If a fight really broke out, it would not end so easily. A traitor who protected an intruder. More and more elders and deacons flew over. Their eyes were fixed on Yi Tianyun and Elder Wan. Elder Mei had a high status. Especially when Mei Yiming died in her arms, her words were more credible. What happened? At this time, a middle-aged man flew over. When he saw Mei Yiming in Elder Mei's arms, his expression changed. Yiming. He quickly landed and stretched out his hand to check. His face turned pale. He's dead. Who did it? Qingyuan, it was him. He killed our child. Elder Mei cried with reddened eyes. It's you. Mei Qingyuan's murderous intent surged and locked onto Yi Tianyun. At the same time, he noticed that Shi Shuyan was holding Yi Tianyun's hand tightly. He immediately felt that something was wrong. Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Heavenly Plum God clan? What do you want? I didn't do anything. I just want to bring him back. As for what you've done, I'll pay you back double. As for your son, I just want to say that some people should pay for their stupidity. I've said a lot. I have to say that your son and woman are short-sighted. Don't they know that some people can't be touched? Yi Tianyun sneered. How could he not be angry after doing such a thing? Simply killing them was already good enough. If they were truly tortured, they would definitely suffer a fate worse than death. They would be better off dead. Form the formation. Mei Qingyuan snorted. The elders around him quickly formed the formation. Mei Qingyuan wasn't the clan leader, but he was the temporary clan leader. The real clan leader was in seclusion. Mei Qingyuan was temporarily in charge. I don't care what the reason is. You killed my son and want to take him away. What do you think the Heavenly Plum God clan is? Do you think you can come and go as you please? No matter who is right or wrong, it's your fault now. Mei Qingyuan said coldly. Suppress the two of them. They killed my son and still want to walk out of here. Instantly, the elders formed the formation. The plum blossoms on the side lit up. The plum blossoms on them started to bloom. Waves of fragrance drifted over from all directions. More importantly, the entire plum blossom tree started to light up. It was covered with dense divine patterns. Even the entire mountain lit up. The power in the surroundings started to increase crazily. In an instant, waves of light appeared on the mountainside. In an instant, a protective shield was formed. It enveloped the area and set up an inescapable net. As long as they didn't break the protective shield, they wouldn't be able to rush out. The formation here could not only defend against the invasion of external enemies, but it could also trap the enemy and prevent them from escaping. It could be said that all the plum blossom trees lit up in the blink of an eye. They were like lanterns shining in the snow, forming an incomparably huge protective shield that suppressed everything. Facing this great formation, Yi Tianyun's expression didn't change. It was as if the changes here had nothing to do with him. Heavenly plum divine formation. Yi Tianyun smiled indifferently. He immediately used his appraisal eye to show the detailed information. Heavenly plum divine formation, a great formation built by countless heavenly plum blossoms. It can resist attacks and prevent the enemy from escaping. There is almost nowhere to hide. All the heavenly plum blossoms can cast a terrifying ice attack. The more people who can control it, the stronger the effect will be. Tianyun, the power of this great formation is rumored to be very strong. It can even suppress Saint King stage experts. Shi Shuiyun said worriedly. It can even suppress Saint King stage experts. Yi Tianyun smiled indifferently. That depends on the Saint King stage. If it is a peak Saint King stage expert, how can this formation block it? He wasn't afraid at all. After all, he had seen all kinds of storms. This heavenly plum divine formation was very clear from the beginning, so he wasn't surprised at all when it was displayed. The problem was that these people were too stubborn. They really dared to keep him here. Not only did they protect him, but they also didn't admit their mistakes. In that case, he didn't mind letting them know that there was always someone better than them. Chapter 686. I advise you to surrender, don't make any unnecessary struggle, under the control of so many elders, even if you are a Saint King stage master, you will still be suppressed here. Mei Qingyuan looked at Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuiyun coldly. Of course, he knew Shi Shuiyun's identity, but now that his son was dead, what was the point of keeping Shi Shuiyun alive? They had always been very optimistic about Shi Shuiyun and Mei Yiming, but now that Mei Yiming was dead, what was the point? Especially when he saw the two of them holding hands, the anger in his heart became even more astonishing. He couldn't wait to cut Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuiyun into several pieces. Surrender. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, after we surrender, what will you do to us? Will you lock us up in a certain place until you die, or will you skin us alive? I will use your blood and flesh as a sacrifice to my son's soul in heaven. Mei Qingyuan said coldly, capture them. At this time, the elders had already finished gathering their strength. The surrounding plum trees quickly released extreme cold qi, crazily surging towards them, causing the temperature to plummet to a terrifying level. The effect of this extreme cold was absolutely comparable to the effect of heavenly yin fire. It could freeze people in an instant. The range of the attack was also extremely astonishing. As long as one was trapped here, no matter where they were, they would be affected. No matter how many people came, they would be quickly frozen by the inescapable net array. This was only a part of the power of the array. They didn't want to kill Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuiyun for the time being, they just wanted to trap them, then let Mei Qingyuan deal with them personally. In an instant, the area where Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuiyun were standing was shrouded by a thick layer of cold qi. Mei Qingyuan and Elder Mei looked over, as if they could already see Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuiyun frozen into ice sculptures, completely under the control of the array. On the side, Elder One shook her head and sighed, Master can't do anything, there are many things that I can't control, I'm sorry. She was full of apologies, but she didn't go up to help. Although she was an elder, her ranking was too low, so her status was obviously inferior to Elder Mei and Mei Qingyuan. No matter what they did, she could only agree. A terrifying sword light sliced the incoming cold air into two, and it instantly disappeared. At the same time, a deep red sword light slashed out in all directions. Wherever it went, the ice and snow melted, and even the sky plums were quickly set ablaze. The plum trees that were ignited quickly burned like torches, and turned into ashes in an instant. Everything was too sudden. The red sword light slashed towards the waists of the surrounding elders. By the time they reacted, the red light had already pierced through their bodies. Following that, he widened his eyes, and with a whoosh, a terrifying flame engulfed them. Along with miserable screams, they were quickly burned into charcoal. They couldn't be any more dead. Ding! Successfully killed the elder of the heavenly plum god race, obtained experience. Ding! Successfully killed. One after another, the Spirit King stage experts were killed by Yi Tianyun's sword. Even the heavenly plum tree was set ablaze by Yi Tianyun. However, the effect of the formation did not weaken. Only a portion of the heavenly plum tree was ignited. There was no big problem. The problem was that with so many elders dead, the power of controlling the heavenly plum blossom formation was greatly reduced. You want to control me with trash like you? Yi Tianyun gripped the Nether Heaven divine sword tightly in his hand. With a divine weapon and his terrifying cultivation, everyone else here was trash. Mei Qingyuan's eyes narrowed. In the blink of an eye, more than half of his elders had died. These were the elites of their Tian Mei divine clan, and they had died just like that. Elder Mei was stunned. This was a great spirit array that could even trap a Saint King stage master. It could withstand any kind of attack, but now it couldn't even withstand a single sword strike. It was instantly ignited by the terrifying flames, turning the entire mountain into a sea of fire. The heavenly plum tree was very difficult to ignite, especially with ordinary flames. Even ordinary weapons couldn't destroy the heavenly plum tree, but under the terrifying flames, it was directly burned to ashes and scattered by the wind. What terrifying strength! Shui Yun, is this the man you have fallen in love with? Elder Wan was dumbfounded. A sword that could dominate the world. This is immortal fire. Who the hell are you? Mei Qingyuan's heart trembled. At this moment, he finally understood why they were so fearless. Merely this strength alone made them unafraid of them. Who am I? Is it important? Yi Tianyun said indifferently. It seems that if I don't make you pay the price, you won't know who you have offended. You think you are invincible in the Tian Mei Divine Clan. Crazy mode, activate. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. His combat power instantly soared to 32 times, and the earth shook because of him. Everyone could feel the terrifying power of Yi Tianyun, but Shi Shuiyun didn't feel anything. She only felt a sense of comfort and peace of mind. The heavenly netherworld divine sword in his hand bloomed with dazzling light, and the immortal fire soared to the sky. It was not necessary to use the netherworld fire to release the power of the heavenly netherworld divine sword, even the immortal fire could do the same. The scorching flame soared to the sky, and the terrible heat instantly melted the surrounding ice and snow. Then, he slashed at the heavenly plum mountain range. Stop! Mei Qingyuan hurriedly shouted when he felt the terrible power, but he didn't dare to approach. Although his cultivation was not weak, he felt so small in the face of this terrible power. God slash! Yi Tianyun turned a deaf ear to him. Instead, he increased the strength in his hand and slashed down heavily. Even though the surviving elders were frantically controlling the spirit array, in the face of this destructive power, it was really insignificant. Boom! The sword light that was hundreds of meters long slashed down heavily. The surrounding shields were like fragile paper, and they were easily cut into pieces. Then, the hard palaces were easily cut through like tofu. The sword light went all the way down, directly into the ground, and hit the core of the spirit array. Bang! The hard core was so fragile, and it was smashed into pieces by the sword light. Yi Tianyun wouldn't casually slash. He was aiming for the heavenly plum array's spirit array. Once the spirit array was destroyed, the heavenly plum divine clan would be completely exposed, and the white fog that covered their true appearance would disappear quickly. After the spirit array was destroyed, the white fog that shrouded the heavenly plum palace quickly disappeared. After the spirit array disappeared, the true appearance of the heavenly plum divine clan was immediately exposed. If someone was looking from the outside, they would immediately see a snowy mountain with many palaces on it. Without this spirit array, anyone could easily barge in, let alone stop enemies from entering. However, under normal circumstances, no one would fight with the heavenly plum divine clan. There weren't many benefits. Chapter 687. This sword attack is to destroy your formation. Do you think you can trap me with just a broken formation? Yi Tianyun sneered, and immediately waved his sword again, aiming at the side again. This time the flame instantly rose a few hundred feet, accumulating to 1,000 feet high. The power of the flame increased again. This made Mei Qingyuan and the others even more frightened. Among them, Elder Mei was paralyzed on the ground. At this time, there was no longer any anger or resentment in her, it was completely replaced by fear. She thought that Yi Tianyun's power was at the peak of the Spirit King stage, but now it seemed that his cultivation was far beyond her imagination. Even the heavenly plum grand array couldn't control him. Stop! Stop! Mei Qingyuan hurriedly shouted. His voice was full of pleading. Compared to his previous arrogant appearance, it was like heaven and earth. Yi Tianyun showed a terrifying power and destroyed the core of the heavenly plum formation with a single sword attack. This made them feel a deep sense of powerlessness. They felt that they were facing an enemy that they couldn't resist. The wide crack on the side was the best proof. A large number of palaces were destroyed by the sword attack. The palaces that they had worked so hard to build were destroyed just like that. Now that the power of the sword attack could continue to increase, how many of their palaces would remain intact after the sword attack? This sword attack is the result of going back on your words. Yi Tianyun slashed his sword down. Boom! The long blade sank into the mountain, and the surrounding snow melted instantly. What was even more terrifying was that the ground began to burn, turning into a dry desert. The originally beautiful heavenly plum formation had now turned into a pile of ashes, and many luxurious houses had collapsed. In the blink of an eye, half of the mountain was flattened. It was very tragic. No one knew how many cultivators were injured by the sword attack. He was merciful. He didn't choose the place with the most people, but the place with the least number of people. Moreover, most of the cultivators had escaped from the palace, and no one was in the palace. Under the explosion, they had already escaped. How could they dare to stay in the palace? However, this did not mean that Yi Tianyun would be merciful. Under the piercing of the long sword, some of the elders and cultivators who were not weak were burned to ashes, especially those who had surrounded him just now. Even if they had received instructions from Mei Qingyuan, a fight was still a fight. He didn't care what the reason was. Anyone who attacked them would die. All of them, including Mei Qingyuan, would die. However, he did not intend to eliminate them for the time being. The reason was simple. He wanted them to witness the destruction of Tianmei Palace and let them know what regret was. This sword strike is an attempt to force my woman to marry your son. Yi Tianyun fiercely slashed down with his sword again, and the flame once again increased by a few hundred feet, as if there was no end to it. It grew longer and longer. Under this sword strike, a large number of houses and arrays were easily destroyed. Almost half of the Tianmei Mountains had been destroyed. If this continued, there wouldn't even be a place to stay. The cultivators who managed to escape all looked over in horror, especially the sea of fire that filled the sky, which was even more terrifying. The flames enveloped the entire mountain top and burned rapidly in all directions. The cold air here couldn't stop the flames at all, and they still burned rapidly in all directions. This was the inextinguishable flame, the true inextinguishable flame. Stop, stop it, Mei Qingyuan was horrified. Their palace was destroyed just like that. His heart felt like it was bleeding, and he felt very painful. However, they couldn't even stop it and could only watch helplessly from the side. They didn't dare to get close. Once they got close to Yi Tianyun, they would definitely be burned to ashes by the terrifying flames. They didn't think that they could deal with Yi Tianyun now, and they only felt fear. Elder May's mouth was wide open, and tears of regret flowed down, but it was all meaningless. She didn't provoke a human, but a terrifying demon. This sword strike is an insult to me. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold, and the Nether Heaven Divine Sword erupted with even more power. The power of the divine weapon was completely released, and another mountain top was gone after the sword strike. The flames crazily rushed forward, and for a time, the whole place was filled with cries and screams. He didn't have the slightest bit of mercy, and he wouldn't be. He would never be soft-hearted towards his enemies. This friend, enough. At this time, a pale red light rose into the sky and turned into a plum blossom blooming in the air. Immediately, countless water droplets fell and began to extinguish the inextinguishable flame. Under the water droplets, the inextinguishable flame was extinguished little by little, but the speed was very slow, not even as fast as Yi Tianyun. Patriarch. When the disciples of Tian Mei divine clan saw the Patriarch come out, they finally saw hope. They saw a handsome man walking in the air, and with every step he took, a plum blossom would appear in the air, blooming in the fiery red sky. With every step he took, he looked like an immortal. Mei Wenshu, Saint King Stage 3rd Layer Master, has the bloodline of Tian Mei Divine Clan, can display the power of Tian Mei, and can release cold air that can freeze everything. Martial skill, Mei Wenshu, a Saint King Stage 3rd Layer Master, in the eyes of Yi Tianyun, there was no difference between his cultivation and garbage. Patriarch. When Mei Qingyuan saw Mei Wenshu come out, he hurriedly shouted, Patriarch, this intruder broke in, destroyed our Tian Mei palace, and also destroyed our great array. Patriarch, please help us get revenge, my son was killed by him. Elder Mei thought that her patriarch was invincible and could deal with everything. Shut up! Mei Wenshu shouted, and a terrifying force slammed down, forcing the two of them to kneel on the ground, including the other elders. Patriarch, they were all stunned. Their patriarch didn't seem to have any intention of attacking immediately. After Mei Wenshu fell from the air, he looked at Yi Tianyun and apologized, this friend, everything is our fault, our people are arrogant and ignorant, please forgive them. At this time, everyone's eyes widened. Yi Tianyun had killed so many of their people, but Mei Wenshu still apologized in the end? This was like a heavy slap in the face, and in the end, he still had to kneel down and apologize. What kind of logic was this? Finally, a reasonable person came out, if you had come out earlier, so many things wouldn't have happened. A group of ignorant and arrogant people, thinking that they are the best in the world? In that case, I will give you a chance, I can forgive the others, but I will never let these two go. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, I have always had some principles, and that is to pay the price. In the face of the patriarch, he still had to take the lives of two people, Mei Qingyuan and Elder Mei, both of them had no choice but to die. Chapter 688. Yi Tianyun's words were even more ruthless. He had killed so many people, and he wanted the lives of two elders. Putting aside Elder Mei for now, just Mei Qingyuan alone could become the next patriarch. Although Mei Yiming said that he could become the patriarch, it was unknown how many decades, or even 100 years later. However, if his father became the patriarch, even if he wasn't the patriarch, his power would be at the top. Now that he said he wanted the lives of these two people, it really made everyone's heart tremble. What would Mei Wenshu say? Sure. Mei Wenshu didn't think too much and immediately agreed to the request, which immediately shocked many people. Among them, Mei Qingyuan and Elder Mei's faces were frighteningly pale. They had made so many contributions, and he just abandoned them like that. They were completely abandoned without any hesitation. Patriarch, don't tell me you don't care about our old friendship. Do we have no value at all? Mei Qingyuan's face was ugly. Although he wasn't attacked, his face looked even uglier than if he was seriously injured. Don't you two know who you've provoked? Mei Wenshu shook his head and revealed a bitter smile. He had spent so much effort, but the inextinguishable fire here hadn't been extinguished. Just this move alone made him feel ashamed of his inferiority. At a close distance, he felt even more terrifying. He had a feeling that he would be cut into two with a single sword. I. Elder Mei cried. Her intestines were already green with regret, but it was already too late. The other party couldn't take back his words. Even if the patriarch came personally, it wouldn't be of any use. If the patriarch was willing to compromise, it meant that they couldn't deal with him. Either sacrifice two people, or sacrifice the entire Tian Mei divine clan. It was that simple to choose one of the two. Even a fool would know what to choose. They would definitely choose to sacrifice two people, and it would also cause the Tian Mei divine clan to suffer such a terrible disaster. I want to see the patriarch. Mei Qingyuan said through clenched teeth. There's no need to see the patriarch. This is the patriarch's answer, Mei Wenshu said indifferently. How is this possible? My father is the patriarch's brother. Mei Qingyuan roared. He felt that this was impossible, but would Mei Wenshu lie? Of course not. It was just that Mei Qingyuan refused to accept the truth. So what if they were brothers? Facing an expert that was so much stronger than them, how could they not nod and agree? Even if he had to cut his own flesh, he had to agree, unless he had to fight to the very end. Enough. Mei Wenshu looked at them coldly and said, I have turned a blind eye to what you have done all these years, especially you. Mei Wenshu pointed at Elder Mei and said coldly, it's all because of your indulgence, Qing Yuan. Then, he stretched out his hand and a shadow appeared in the air. Then, it fiercely grabbed at Elder Mei's head and quickly pulled her out. Accompanied by a scream, Elder Mei's soul was forcefully pulled out. This was the evil spirit race's ultimate martial arts skill. It could forcefully pull out the enemy's soul so that it would be easier to possess. However, it was extremely difficult. Only a great disparity in cultivation could achieve this step. Yi Tianyun's strength was much stronger than hers, so he could forcefully pull out her soul. What are you trying to do? Elder Mei screamed. After her soul was pulled out, she became even more sensitive to her surroundings. Actually, when a cultivator reached the later stages, they could endure any kind of attack, but that was only limited to physical damage. There was one thing that they could not endure, and that was the damage to their soul. Didn't you want to turn into a vengeful spirit and haunt me? Then I'll pull out your soul now and see how you turn into a vengeful spirit. Yi Tianyun laughed coldly. Not only did you not realize your mistake, but you also want to curse me. I originally wanted to kill you easily, but it seems like you're courting death. Let me tell you, I have thousands of ways to make you wish you were dead. However, I'll give Ant and the Tian Mei divine clan some face today. Even if I didn't make a move today and let you live, this will definitely happen in the future. He reached out and flicked his finger. Following that, the inextinguishable flame started to burn from the bottom of her feet. The intense pain made her scream endlessly. Her scream was so hoarse that it pierced into the depths of one's heart. Chapter 689. Screams resounded throughout the area. Many people felt goosebumps when they heard it. This was the first time they had seen something like this. How could they not be scared? The inextinguishable flames burned inch by inch. It was as if the soul was a burning material that could be ignited bit by bit. No matter how Elder Mei screamed, Yi Tianyun didn't care. It should be said that he didn't need to do anything. He only needed to light the fire. There was no need to manage the rest. The inextinguishable flames would burn until the soul was completely gone. Give us a quick death. Mei Qingyuan roared. He only hoped that Yi Tianyun would give them a quick death. He didn't think about anything else. If I was captured by you, would you give me a quick death? Yi Tianyun said indifferently. Mei Qingyuan closed his eyes in pain. Yi Tianyun's words were very clear. He wouldn't give them a quick death. The reason was very simple. Even if Mei Qingyuan captured him, he wouldn't be able to kill him easily. He had to make Yi Tianyun suffer a fate worse than death. Mei Qingyuan's son was killed. How could he let Yi Tianyun die? Even if Mei Qingyuan was willing, Elder Mei definitely wouldn't be. This was her son. How could she let him die so easily? With Elder Mei's personality, she will definitely use more vicious methods to torture Yi Tianyun. That kind of feeling doesn't need to be experienced, you can see it with your own eyes. It's good that you understand. However, I will give you a relatively dignified death. At least, your soul and body will remain here. Yi Tianyun waved his hand and the inextinguishable flames started burning. His method was also very simple. He just needed to burn them to death. However, it was still very painful. Compared to Elder Mei's death, it was undoubtedly a little better. There were so many people from the Tian Mei divine clan. They could only watch helplessly as the two of them were killed. There was no way to vent the grievance and anger in their hearts. Although everything was brought upon by Mei Qingyuan and the others, they were still on the same side. Seeing their elders being burned to death bit by bit still made them feel very uncomfortable. Mei Wenshu could only sigh at the side. He didn't even look at them as if they didn't exist. Very well. Since you've made a gesture, I'll do the same. Yi Tianyun waved his hand and the inextinguishable flames that filled the place were drawn back. In the blink of an eye, all the flames were drawn away, leaving nothing behind. However, after the imperishable was extracted, all that was left was a scorched black ground. Some of it had even been burned into magma. The terrifying temperature caused the temperature here to skyrocket. Part of the palace had been destroyed, and it was a tragic sight to behold. And this was accomplished by Yi Tianyun alone. He was an existence that could crush everyone else. If not for Mei Wenshu, this place would have been completely destroyed. At that time, the Heavenly Plum Divine Clan would have to rebuild the palace from scratch. The price they would have to pay would be astonishing, and it would be no different from rebuilding the palace from scratch. It was still alright now. Only less than half of the palace had been destroyed, so it wasn't too bad overall. If Mei Wenshu had been a little later, or if he had continued to resist, the palace would have been completely destroyed without mercy. Yi Tianyun really didn't mind turning them into a pile of experience points. He was in dire need of experience points, and it would be good if he could kill a few Saint Kings. Then, Yi Tianyun glanced at Elder Wan. Elder Wan's legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the ground. Yi Tianyun hadn't even used any strength, and she had already collapsed onto the ground. She had really been frightened by Yi Tianyun. Tianyun, she doesn't need to be punished. When we were here, she still took good care of me, Shi Shuyan advised. She already didn't intend to call Elder Wan master. She had lied to her and come to the Heavenly Plum Divine Clan, and had even made a lot of false promises. In terms of ruthlessness, Shi Shuyan wasn't any worse than Yi Tianyun. In fact, she was even more ruthless. If Yi Tianyun was captured and tortured here, Shi Shuyan would probably slaughter everyone, even those who didn't know anything, without exception. When Shi Shuyan was in Jade Palace, she was already crowned with the title of Slaughtering Palace Master. She really kills people when she sees them. As long as they were enemies, she would kill them, and even if they were related to her, she would completely eliminate them. Well, I'll listen to Aunt. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. Originally, he really wanted to punish Elder Wan, but since Shi Shuyan had persuaded him, he didn't say anything. As long as Shi Shuyan persuaded him, he wouldn't do it. Immediately, Yi Tianyun threw out 5 saint tools, and inserted them into the ground. He said indifferently, "These are 2 different things. Originally, I came here to look for someone. I know what you have done, but I didn't expect to be stopped and forcibly restrained. This is compensation for what you have done, but there is something I have to say. If it wasn't for your elder one taking her away, her cultivation would be much higher than this. He wasn't being arrogant, but he didn't have enough resources before, so he couldn't let Shi Shuyan display her full potential. Later on, when her cultivation improved, Shi Shuyan would be able to display more of her potential. If it was him, Shi Shuyan would be at the peak of Void Spirit stage by now, or even Spirit King stage. He didn't hold back the resources he gave to Shi Shuyan. As long as it was useful, he will give it to her. Mei Wenshu didn't say anything. Looking at the Saint tools, he sighed. If there weren't so many idiots in their clan, they would have made friends with this strong person. Tianyun, let's leave here, I don't want to see them anymore. Shi Shuyan shook her head. Originally, she wanted to serve Tian Mei Celestial Clan, and she was very loyal to them. Tian Mei Celestial Clan treated her so well, she would definitely repay them. Who knew that from the beginning, they only wanted the Ice Saint body, and they wanted to raise the next generation. To put it bluntly, they just wanted her to marry into their clan and give birth to more children. Her cultivation could still break through, but more importantly, she wanted to find outstanding women for Tian Mei Celestial Clan to give birth to the next generation. It was normal, but she found the wrong person. Of all the things she shouldn't have done, she found the woman that Yi Tianyun had set his eyes on. And, I also feel that it's quite ugly. Let's go then. Yi Tianyun smiled and waved his hand, and the indigo phoenix appeared in front of them. Yi Tianyun helped her up the indigo phoenix, and they flew away under everyone's gaze. After they flew away, the immortal fire suddenly increased in intensity, engulfing them completely, and burning them into a pile of ashes. Of course, Yi Tianyun wouldn't let them go, but Shi Shuyan's words saved them a lot of pain. Otherwise, it would have burned for at least a few days and nights. Chapter 690. After Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuyan left, they finally felt relieved, but their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. Originally, Tian Mei Divine Clan had planned to come out after a while, but now, let alone come out, it was already good enough that they could protect themselves. Many elders had died, and the most important palaces had been destroyed, including the Tian Mei Great Array. Everything had been destroyed, which made them feel haggard. I didn't expect such a thing to happen so soon after I went into seclusion. Mei Wenshu let out a deep sigh. Looking at the mess, his heart was filled with even more sorrow. All of them had planned to come out after a while, but they didn't expect to provoke such an overbearing powerhouse, who crushed all of them with a flip of his hand. Were they willing? Of course not. It was as if someone had pressed them to the ground and then beaten them violently. No matter who was right and who was wrong, it was difficult for them to swallow this anger. However, so what if they couldn't swallow this anger? What else could they do? They still had to swallow it. Tian Mei Divine Clan was not as glorious as it was in the past, nor did it have the power it once had. It seems that we have to rectify the situation in the clan. Everyone is so arrogant and arrogant, don't they know that there is always someone better than them? Mei Wenshu turned to look at the crowd and said coldly, "From today on, Tian Mei Divine Clan will go into seclusion again for 100 years, no one is allowed to come out. Now everyone, come and repair the palaces and the great array here." They had bitter faces, they could only do so now. "Patriarch, are we not going to take revenge?" One of the deacons was furious. He wanted to kill them before, but the patriarch didn't allow anyone to do so, so he could only stand on the side. Some people would rather die than stand here and be abused. "Revenge, do you think I don't want to?" Mei Wenshu shook his head. "Old ancestors said that he can feel that this person's strength is very terrible. I'm afraid that he can cut us in half with a single sword strike." "Cut us in half with a single sword strike? Our old ancestor is a super powerhouse who survived the Heaven World War." Everyone was shocked, they were all aggrieved, but after hearing this, it was like a basin of cold water had been poured over them, they felt cold from head to toe. "It is precisely because he survived the Heaven World War that we can feel how powerful he is." I'm afraid he has reached the late Saint King stage. It's too easy for him to deal with us. Mei Wenshu shook his head and said, a real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. I only hope that there will be fewer idiots like this in the clan. If it weren't for the two of them, would we have become like this? Do you see those 5 sage items? They're tossing them to us like trash. Even ordinary divine nations wouldn't be so generous. The resources we've used to nurture her probably don't even add up to 2 saint artifacts, and now she's throwing 5 of them at us. Mei Wenshu said with some regret, if we could befriend him, we would definitely have a strong helper. How hateful, how hateful. But everything has already been decided, there's no point in saying anything now. If you're not willing to accept this, then you can cultivate with all your might. Once you've reached a cultivation base stronger than him, stronger than us, then you'll be able to suppress him. I look forward to this day. But if you don't have this kind of cultivation, then get as far away from him as you can. I don't want to see this happen a second time. He's a black sheep. Mei Wenshu was heartbroken, but he was still rational enough. A real man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. If he didn't compromise, then his entire clan would be destroyed. Would he die for that little bit of dignity, or live for the big picture? Moreover, what happened here might not necessarily spread out, so it wouldn't damage the reputation of the Tianmei divine clan. While the palace was being rapidly repaired, Yi Tianyun and Shi Shuyan landed in a small wooden hut in the Tianmei mountain range. A group of people here stared blankly at Yi Tianyun coming down. Phoenix, they were all stunned. What shocked them the most was that Yi Tianyun came down on a phoenix. Because didn't Yi Tianyun come in with them to do odd jobs? How did he come over on a phoenix in the blink of an eye? Brother Yi, what's going on? Xiaowu ran out of the wooden hut. Something happened in the palace, so they definitely came out to take a look, but they didn't dare to approach. Nothing much, I'm here to pick you up and leave this place. Yi Tianyun said with a faint smile, speaking of which, are you willing to go with me? I can give you a good fortune, but you have to work for me. Xiaowu scratched his head and said honestly, if I become your subordinate, can I go home and take some money back to support my family? Xiaowu's words made people dumbfounded. He really had a lot of things to think about. Of course, as long as you work for me wholeheartedly, not to mention to support your family, I can even take your family to live here. Yi Tianyun laughed happily. Okay, I'm willing to go with you. As long as you are willing to talk to me, I will do whatever Brother Yi says. Usually, I can't do anything except have great strength. Xiaowu said happily. Don't worry, you will soon surpass others. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand, and a stream of martial arts drilled into Xiaowu's head. Remember well, practice well, you will definitely become the strongest of the generation. Immediately, he summoned a core transformation stage demon beast and carried him to the heaven-ascending divine altar. They still had things to do, so they definitely wouldn't bring Xiaowu along. He wasn't worried that Xiaowu would betray him. Xiaowu was very simple and honest, he would be good to whoever was good to him. It was that simple. You haven't forgotten to recruit subordinates since you came to the heaven realm. Do you think he is very talented? Shi Shuyan couldn't see any talent, she only saw a clumsy and honest strong man. Of course he is talented, you will know in the future. Yi Tianyun gently hugged her and smiled. He signaled Indigo Phoenix to fly high up in the sky and leave this area completely. Well, you dare to play riddles with me. Shi Shuyan snorted, she felt a little dissatisfied, but her expression looked a little playful. Yi Tianyun reached out and hugged her. After they looked at each other, he smiled lightly, Aunt, you are so beautiful. I don't need you. Before she could finish her sentence, Yi Tianyun had already kissed her deeply. The sudden action really scared Shi Shuyan, but she didn't struggle. Instead, her pretty face was red, even to the root of her ears, like an apple. Chirp! Indigo Phoenix cried, expressing its dissatisfaction. Yi Tianyun lightly stepped on it to stop it from destroying the atmosphere, but the strength of his hand didn't decrease at all. He continued to hug her waist tightly, he had no intention of letting go. Chapter 691. After an unknown period of time, Shi Shuyan laid in Yi Tianyun's arms. Her face was flushed. She didn't expect Yi Tianyun to be so daring. Now, she didn't look like an ant at all. She had become a little girl lying in his arms. She looked very obedient. "Aunt, do you know how worried I was when I came back and found you were taken away?" Yi Tianyun held her little hand tightly and smelled the fragrance of her hair. Everything was so comfortable. He hadn't felt this way for a long time. In the past, when he came back from a big battle, he could accompany her and spend some time with her. Ever since she came to the heaven realm, she felt that everything had been so long. Shi Shuyan is like a harbor that allows him to dock. Who knows that the harbor suddenly disappeared? When the Tianmei celestial clan came to take me away, I was very hesitant. But I thought that I could become stronger and come to the heaven realm to find your parents. So I came. At that time, I really didn't want to come to the heaven realm. Shi Shuyan looked at the blue sky in the distance with a faint smile on her face. It wasn't because the environment here was too beautiful, but because there was someone beside her. "Don't leave me casually in the future, okay?" Yi Tianyun whispered in her ear. N. Shi Shuyan nodded lightly. She reached out and caressed Yi Tianyun's face. She smiled faintly and said, "I didn't want to leave you from the beginning." She smiled like a beautiful crabapple flower blooming. It was beautiful and moving. Yi Tianyun stared at her for a long time. Then, he smiled gently and said, "Aunt, after we go back, we will get married, right?" Shi Shuyan was startled. Then, she blushed and her eyes became slightly red. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slowly leaned on his shoulder and said softly, "Tianyun, don't you dislike me? I'm older than you." "Older than me? Isn't that only 7 or 8 years older? Is that considered older? There are so many cultivators with Tao companions who are hundreds of years apart in age. What do we count as?" Yi Tianyun said, not minding at all. "Then why are all the women you brought back so young?" Yi Tianyun was speechless. He immediately explained, "Auntie, I only invited them because I felt that they had some potential." "How is it related to age?" "They just happen to be a little younger." "How could it be that I only bring back young ones?" "Is that so? Looks like I was thinking too much." Shi Shuyan leaned into his embrace and replied softly, "Then I'm willing to marry you." Yi Tianyun gently lifted her chin, and what entered his eyes were those beautiful eyes that rippled like water. He didn't say anything, and once again kissed her fiercely. After some time, they separated again. Yi Tianyun hugged her even tighter. Was he pleasantly surprised? It was not a pleasant surprise. Because everything was so natural and inevitable. Since a long time ago, he had decided that he must marry Shi Shuyan. Now that he had agreed, his heart was filled with even more emotion. It was an indescribable feeling. The only way he could express his feelings now was to hug Shi Shuyan tightly in his arms, as if he was afraid that she would run away. Thinking back to all the things that happened in the past, before the system was activated, everything was so difficult. No matter how the people around him mocked and ridiculed him, Shi Shuyan helped him resist as usual. She even constantly searched for elixirs to replenish his vitality. If it wasn't for her bold attempts, it would have been really difficult to activate the system. The dragon blood elixir could only be activated if it was of a higher grade, or if it was of a higher grade than the dragon blood elixir, it could be activated as long as the grade was about the same. Before his body was weak, Shi Shuyan didn't dare to give him the precious elixirs. It wasn't because she was afraid that it would be a waste, but because she was afraid that Yi Tianyun's body wouldn't be able to withstand it. The dragon blood elixir was considered mild. She would only take it back after Yi Tianyun's condition stabilized. Before this, everything was so dark, but he didn't despair, and he didn't give up. He believed that one day, he would also be able to protect Shi Xueyan, and he wouldn't always be protected by Shi Xueyan. Right now, he already had the power to protect Shi Xueyan, and he could even fiercely fight back against those who didn't think highly of him. After a moment of warmth, Shi Xueyan looked ahead and said unhurriedly, "I wonder what's the situation with my sister now." Yi Tianyan's heart sank. Now he had to face a problem, and that was the problem of his parents. "Aunt, what's the situation with my parents? Have you gathered any news about them?" Yi Tianyan asked. "I haven't gathered any news. I haven't been able to go out. I originally planned to continue to raise my cultivation, and then go out to investigate the situation." Shi Xueyan smiled faintly and said, "Who knew that things would turn out like this? In the end, I still went with you to investigate. Aunt, to tell you the truth, I'm not interested in this." Yi Tianyan's expression was indifferent. He had no interest in this so-called parents. First of all, he didn't have any impression of them. Secondly, he didn't have any memories, so how could he have any feelings? To say that he missed them a lot was a boast. He hadn't even seen them, so how could he miss them? Even if he found them, it was unlikely that he would be very respectful to them. It wasn't that he didn't respect his parents, but it was really irresponsible to casually leave him behind. Even if he had any difficulties, it was meaningless. Logically speaking, he should have died long ago, so what did his parents have to do with him? "I know you hate them in your heart, but they are still your parents." Shi Xueyan's eyes flickered. "The key is that I want to see what's the situation with my sister now. At that time, she abandoned everything and left. I want to see if her choice at that time was right. If it's right, I won't say anything more. If it's not right, I'll wake her up and drag her back to the mortal world. I want to know if your father took responsibility in the end. The main reason I came to the heaven realm is to find an answer." Her eyes flickered. She came here to find an answer. At that time, her persuasion to stay was useless. She still insisted on looking for Yi Tianyan's father because it was a path of no return, so she kept persuading him to stay. Now that almost 20 years had passed, she didn't know what the situation was. For cultivators, it was just a matter of a snap of the fingers. But if it was something else, there would be a lot of changes. "Alright, then I'll accompany Aunt to search. I wonder if you have any memories of this force?" Yi Tianyan asked. As long as one knew the name, everything would be very easy to find. The only thing they were afraid of was not knowing what the name was. This was like the Tianmei celestial clan. If one didn't find some characteristics, one wouldn't even be able to find it. Chapter 692. Ding! Complete main quest. Find Shi Xueyan. Reward: 300 million EXP, 100. 000 crazy point, 5 super lottery roulette tickets. Ding! Complete main quest. Find parents. Reward: 500 million EXP, 100. 000 crazy point, 2 super lottery roulette tickets. At this time, the main quest finally popped up, and a new main quest popped up, which is the quest to find his parents. It seems that he is destined to find his parents. This is inevitable. Even if he doesn't want to, he has to go. Unless he doesn't want to continue to complete the main quest, in this case, the EXP he gets will be a lot less. Of course, now that he is going there, he is happy to have this kind of quest appear. Shi Xueyan didn't know what happened, but after thinking for a while, she slowly said, I will remember, that is Divine Nation Force. For our Jade Palace, Divine Nation's power is unattainable, it's like a god. Divine Nation Force. Yi Tianyan nodded. This is not unexpected, since it is not in the mortal realm, it must be in the ghost realm or heaven realm. To be able to be in this place, it is certainly not bad. Sure enough, it belongs to Divine Nation Force. I am afraid that only the genius of divine nation can make Yi Tianyun's mother willing to go with him. If he is not a genius, as the palace lord of Jade Palace, she will not look at him. Yes, it is divine nation force. I went to Tianmei divine clan to improve my cultivation, to a large extent, because of this. If you want to find more information, your cultivation must be higher, otherwise you can't go deeper. Shi Shuiyun said indifferently, this divine nation force is Fengtian divine nation, a divine king once appeared in it. Fengtian divine nation? Yi Tianyun startled, of course he knows about this divine nation, he learned about it from the memory of the sealed demon spirit. Fengtian divine nation is the divine nation of a generation of divine king, it can be said to be the supreme existence in heaven realm, it is the first divine nation in heaven realm. He didn't expect that his origin is actually the descendant of Fengtian divine nation, the descendant of the king of the heavens. They were quite famous, but the Fengtian divine kingdom had already declined. When he came to the heaven realm, he had already inquired about the various forces. Previously, he had promised to join hands with the descendants of the two great divine kings. Only then would they be able to suppress the demons. Thus, when he came to the heaven realm, he had inquired about it, and the results were surprising. The sky-sealing divine kingdom was still a divine kingdom, but it was no longer the number one divine kingdom. Instead, it had fallen to the 8th place. This was also a very powerful existence. At the very least, it could squeeze into the top 10 out of so many god nations. However, compared to the number one divine nation faction, it was still a far cry. When the Fengtian divine kingdom claimed to be number 2, no one dared to claim to be number 1. The key was the gap between the first and second place. It was as if there were several third-place god nations in between. The other god nations had 3 sages or 5 sages or something like that. The Fengtian divine kingdom had 1 god and 10 sages. Since there was 1 divine king and 10 holy kings, it was evident how nature-defying they were. This was the glory of the Fengtian divine kingdom in the past. However, after the battle of the heaven realm and the departure of the divine king, as time passed, they quickly declined. Let's not talk about the 10 sages for now. At most, there were 2 sages in 1 divine kingdom. Even so, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The Fengtian divine kingdom was still in the top 10, and no one dared to provoke them. However, no one dared to provoke them, but it did not mean that their status was high. The 8th place was the best proof. Yes, the Fengtian divine kingdom is an extremely terrifying existence. Shi Shuiyun said indifferently. Sister is going to marry into such a divine kingdom. And your father was known as the number 1 genius of the Fengtian divine kingdom. You can imagine how talented his cultivation companion must be. At that time, sister was not recognized by the Fengtian divine kingdom. She was not even qualified to be a concubine. This was terrifying. There was a world of difference between the geniuses of the mortal realm and the geniuses of the heaven realm. In the mortal realm, those who could reach the core condensation stage in their teens were considered super geniuses. In the heaven realm, those who could reach the spirit core stage or even the core transformation stage in their teens were called real geniuses. Therefore, it was difficult for Yi Tianyun's mother to marry into the Fengtian divine kingdom. However, the two of them still got together. After giving birth to him, they returned to the heaven realm again. The number 1 genius? This father is really domineering. Yi Tianyun shook his head. The union of the two of them gave birth to a child with thin blood qi. This was too strange. He felt that there must be something fishy. Otherwise, how could his blood qi be so thin? His talent was absolutely amazing. If it wasn't for the fact that his blood qi was too weak, he would have burst out and soared to the sky. But his blood qi was so weak that if he cultivated, he would lose his life. No matter how strong his talent was, it would be useless. When I first saw your father, he was indeed a very amazing genius. He had the capital to be proud of, and even more amazing talent. Countless girls bowed to him. Shi Shuiyun shook her head and sighed. sister was also deeply attracted to him. Even though she knew that she would face an extremely painful consequence, she still went to the heaven realm. That's why Aunt wanted to come here to see if mother's current situation is better than expected. Yi Tianyun said with a faint smile. But I think it shouldn't be much better. If things were going well, she would have returned to the mortal realm to look for him. She wouldn't have gone missing for 20 years. That's why I wanted to come and see. If she's not doing well, I'll beat her up and force her to go back. Shi Shuyan's eyes turned red. She's my best sister. If it wasn't for her, I'm afraid I wouldn't have survived. It's my greatest fortune to be able to become sworn sisters with your mother. Don't worry, we'll bring mother back. Yi Tianyun smiled and sped towards the Fengtian Divine Kingdom. He knew the rough route, so he wasn't worried about getting lost. But what would happen when he got there? That was another matter. On the way, he thought about the lottery. Since he had some free time, he started to draw. He wouldn't forget about the ancient set. If he could successfully draw the ancient set, he wouldn't have to worry about the Fengtian Divine Kingdom's resistance. Activate the lottery roulette. A huge lottery roulette appeared in the air. However, Shi Shuyan, who was leaning on him, couldn't see it. She just stayed beside him and enjoyed the peace. This was just a short break before the battle. When the time came, many things would happen. The Fengtian Divine Kingdom definitely wouldn't be easy to deal with. Chapter 693. Activate Lucky Aura. With the Lucky Halo activated, it had to be activated every time he drew a prize. Otherwise, there was a high chance that it would land on a consumable item. If it was activated, it was still possible for it to be a consumable item, but at least it was possible for it to be a rare item, so it would definitely be activated. Immediately, the lottery roulette spun rapidly. Not long after, the needle stopped on consumables. However, he still had 4 lucky draws left. He didn't even open the box and continued to draw. In any case, from the moment the box fell, it was already determined what was inside. Whether the lucky halo was activated or not, it was no longer important. The needle spun again and finally stopped on the accessory. Accessories. Yi Tianyun was overjoyed. Although he didn't know if it was a desolate antiquity set, he couldn't help but be excited about landing here. When the wooden box fell to the ground, he thought to open it, and the wooden box automatically opened. Then, an accessory appeared before his eyes, the longevity necklace. It wasn't the ancient desolate set equipment, but something else. Longevity necklace, one of the longevity set equipment. After equipping it, the user's healing power is increased by 10 times. Be it self-healing or the effects of healing medicinal pills, the user's healing power is increased by 10 times. Additionally, the user's defensive power is increased by 30 times. Consume 10,000 crazy point to activate Longevity Rampage, which can increase healing effect by 5 times for 10 minutes. Not bad, Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. Although it wasn't an ancient set, it was definitely an extremely powerful recovery set. Wearing it would greatly increase the user's healing ability. If he could gather a full set of equipment, wouldn't it be equivalent to being in an immortal state? After being ruthlessly stabbed by a knife, it healed in the blink of an eye. This terrifying effect was astonishing just thinking about it. Again. He started drawing again. The longevity necklace was not bad, but it was still a passive defense. It was better to focus on the ancient desolate equipment set to increase his strength. Soon after, the needle stopped. This time, it stopped on cultivation techniques. It had to be said that he had obtained enough cultivation techniques. Now, he couldn't use many of them, so he could only use those few moves. He couldn't use the heaven-swallowing divine art. Even if he sucked a person dry, he wouldn't get much experience, so he didn't need it for the time being. Especially now that they were coming in a group, he didn't have the time to absorb their experience. I wonder what kind of cultivation method it will be. Even so, he was still a little excited to see what kind of cultivation method would appear. Immediately after, he quickly opened it, and soon, a cultivation technique appeared in front of him, heaven-shaking technique. Heaven-shaking art. Tianyun quickly flipped it open and the detailed data immediately appeared in front of him. Heaven-trembling scripture, low-grade heaven-ranked martial art. Cultivates the body to suppress everything with a terrifying weight. The higher the level of cultivation, the more astonishing the weight of one's body. If they cultivated to the upper levels, they would be able to crush the world with a single stomp. Current state, heaven-shaking scripture minor mastery stage, able to turn into a weight of 100 million gene to suppress everything. The next level requires 5 million crazy points to upgrade. Turning it into a weight of 100 million gene. That's equivalent to a mountain. Tianyun was shocked. With just one kick, he would have turned into a meat patty. The weight of over 100 million gene was terrifying. Even if a Saint King stage cultivator punched him, he would only be able to break this weight. This was only the initial stage. If it was raised to the major stage or the perfect stage, it would be terrifying. The heaven-shaking art was divided into 3 stages, initial, advanced, and perfect. There were only 3 stages. This was the problem with low-grade heaven-ranked martial art. If it was a bit higher, the effect would definitely be more than this. Not a bad move, I can use it in battle. Tianyun was also very satisfied with this lottery. It was a good martial art, and it didn't conflict with other martial arts. Thinking about it carefully, with his own weight, his punch was basically equal to 100 million gene of power. He didn't need to rely on any martial arts, just one punch was enough to suppress everything. Continue the lottery. After rolling through the lottery once more, the needle quickly stopped at the consumable item. Consumable again. Fine, I'll draw again. He didn't stop and continued to draw like crazy. He wanted to see if he could get an accessory type for the last time. Soon, the needle stopped again and finally stopped at the accessory type. Got it again. Tianyun was happy. Finally, he got an accessory type again. He hoped he could get it this time. Immediately, he slowly opened the wooden box, and what appeared in front of him immediately made his heart beat faster. Ancient bracelet. This is great. Tianyun exclaimed. Shi Shuyan, who was in his arms, sat up in shock. She looked at him blankly, not knowing what had happened. What's wrong? Shi Shuyan asked in surprise. Nothing, I just think it's great to have you. Tianyun hugged Shi Shuyan again, but he didn't tell her the reason. This secret couldn't be told to anyone, not even Shi Shuyan. It wasn't that he didn't trust them, but no one would believe him even if he told them. Moreover, it was useless to tell them these things. Really? Shi Shuyan blushed and didn't say anything else. She continued to lie in Tianyun's arms. Tianyun started to check the ancient bracelet, and the detailed information appeared in front of him. Ancient bracelet, one of the ancient set equipment. Increases strength by 30 times, critical damage by 3 times, and critical chance by 20%. Equipment. Tianyun's eyes flashed, and he immediately equipped the ancient bracelet. This time, the effects of the ancient set equipment were finally completed. Ding! Successfully equipped the ancient set equipment. Increases strength by 50 times, defense by 10 times, speed by 5 times, and critical chance by 30%. Furthermore, it comes with the ancient set equipment. Attacks can create crazy desertification, which can corrode all enemies. Not bad. Tianyun's eyes flashed, and he was overjoyed. As expected, it didn't disappoint him. The effects of the ancient set equipment were amazing, and it greatly increased his stats in all aspects. Just a few accessories alone could increase strength by 100 times, defense by almost 100 times, speed by 10 to 20 times, and critical chance by more than half. It could be said that it was an all-round enhancement. Coupled with the evil spirit's set equipment, one could imagine how powerful it was. I have a feeling that even a king sage from a race with a super strong bloodline would be easily suppressed by me. Yi Tianyun was full of confidence. He had this premonition. The bloodline of the evil spirit's race was definitely domineering, but it wasn't the strongest. In the 3 realms, it probably couldn't even enter the top 5. Therefore, the real domineering bloodline hadn't appeared yet. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.